everyone, welcome to another exciting commentary podcast. I'm Captain Logan, and today we are going to watch and chat about Iron Man 3. Joining me today is the magnanimous Steve Baxey.
Hello, everybody.
And Iron Man armor enthusiast, Eric.
How come Steve always gets introduced before me?
Oh, do you want to start this over?
Yeah, sure. I'm Captain Logan, and joining me today is Iron Man armor enthusiast, Eric.
That doesn't mean as much now.
And
He's going in alphabetical order except for him.
And some dude named Steve.
Eric comes before Steve.
No,
obviously
doesn't come before Baxey.
Oh, yeah, well.
And Cap starts with a C. Like Cookie. Anyway, thanks a lot for joining us. We're going to watch Iron Man 3. This is a movie that I've only seen a couple times. I don't know real well, and I still have kind of a amorphous non-opinion on. I enjoy a lot of things about this movie, but it's not one I really go back and think about a lot, and these guys think it's absolutely brilliant.
It's my favorite It's my favorite superhero movie, period.
I think you can make a case for being the greatest comic book movie of all time. It's so good.
It's going to be really interesting to see you guys throw those arguments out as we go along. And there's a lot of people that really don't like this movie, especially because of the Mandarin. And as I said, I've just been somewhat indifferent toward it. And with a lot of things like this, I tend to find the brilliance in my writing, and I haven't written about this one yet. So it'll be really interesting to see if watching this, as you guys are pointing things out, if I have a similar experience.
You should write about yourself and find the brilliance within yourself.
Look, I'm not trying to make this a Disney movie, okay? Anyway. So, if you want to listen to this as a commentary and watch the movie along with us, you'll want to get your DVD, your Blu-ray, however you want to watch it, get it past all the menus, and get it to timestamp 0, pause it, and get ready to press play whenever I say now. You can also listen to it as a podcast without the movie, and we'll do our level best to provide some context for you as you are listening in your basement or in your car. And we're going to go ahead and get started, get right into it. Everybody ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, here we go. Everybody, please press play right now. I will say I remember loving the way this movie opens.
It is pretty great. Well, I love the imagery. Like, this is one of those movies where, like, I go back and I can just watch it on mute, and there's so many interesting visual cues about what Tony's going through and what the political commentary is and what the whole point of the movie is, just with the way it's shot.
So this movie does the same thing Iron Man 2 does, where it basically opens telling you the theme of the movie. With Iron Man 2, it opens with, it's about legacy. And this movie opens with, we create our own demons. But in this movie, it works.
Yeah. And I love Tony's, like, narrating the story all the way through. I think that's great. I love the end speech he gives. That end speech is my second favorite moment in every Marvel movie.
And, of course, that's a big risk. It usually doesn't work.
And it makes the post-credit scene hilarious. I love that. He's just regaling it all to Bruce.
My wife loves that song.
Doesn't everybody?
Yeah.
Are there people that don't like Blue?
I don't, honestly, I don't know. I just always think of that as one of those silly 90s songs that people only think of when they're poking fun of the 90s.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't think anybody genuinely likes it. They all like it ironically, right?
Yeah, but I think with more affection than maybe the Macarena.
You know, the Macarena is something, talking about this movie, the Macarena is something that I always forget is a 90s thing because it existed when I was a kid. So I just assume it's, has always existed.
That's kind of how I had with it, yeah. Oh, by the way, I love that they have the guy from...
Oh, that's the party where he meets Yinsen.
Yeah, from the first movie.
I never picked up on that.
Really?
Yeah. Well,
Eric, I've watched this movie twice.
Day one, in theaters, I picked up on it.
Yeah,
well, I might have, but I don't remember that. Again, this movie's not stuck with me, is the thing.
Yeah.
That's fair. So I love Guy Pearce's Aldrich Killian. Like, everyone talks about Marvel having weak villains, and they do for the most part. Marvel has not had the best track record with their villains, but I think Aldrich Killian is one of their absolute best.
Did you just do a check? Did you say villains?
No, he said villains.
I thought I said villains.
You said villains, like your Chekhov from Star Trek.
No. No, but Aldrich Killian just as a character is incredible. I love everything about him.
I do think it's weird that here we kind of later we find out that Killian worked with Pepper, or that Pepper worked for Killian, and it's kind of convenient that he met Tony and Pepper. I mean, it makes sense for what happens later with Killian and Pepper.
But I always assumed like he met Pepper after this, like after he already started having a thing against Tony, so then he would have a reason to meet Pepper.
That's true. Although it kind of sounds like it's before she works with Tony.
I guess we don't
Like
know
it's
when
her
that
old
happens.
boss.
Because Pepper is like Tony's right-hand man at the very beginning of Iron Man, so like it's very possible that she's been there long enough to Aldrich Killian wanting to know who Tony trusts.
Mm.
And that would be the point of kidnapping her at the end, which is, I think, what the movie was trying to say.
Well, there's a couple of layers to him kidnapping her.
Yeah, I mean, there's multiple stuff there. People don't like the fact that she kills Killian, but I think that's the point of the movie, is that she's the reason he's able to beat Killian.
Yeah.
And then maybe the problem for people is just it sort of looks like it's more her movie than his, but I don't know that I would make that argument.
Yeah, I wouldn't make that argument either.
You know, Eric, Extremis is amazing because you can use it to maybe help people grow limbs back, and you don't have to turn them all into giant lizards.
It's true. It's true. You just have to make them explode.
See, there's always there's always a trade-off.
We will never
be
able
payment.
to make people grow their limbs back without a catch. I think that's what science has taught us.
I've been reading New Teen Titans, and they have exactly the same thing as this version of Extremis in their second story arc.
Really?
Yeah, it's kind of hilarious. Slade steals it.
It should be noted that this is very different from Extremis in the comics.
Yeah, it's absolutely different. It's got nothing. It's almost nothing to do with it except thematically.
Well, and how they explain Extremis works is the same way they explain it works in the comics, but it's different. The whole thing with the open area in your brain designed to, your brain designed to be hacked and all that. That's from that's from Extremis. Have you ever read Extremis, Cap?
I still haven't.
You should. It will take you about 4 minutes.
Is it biological in the comics?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it is.
I always got the sense that it wasn't for some reason, and I just.
It is not a singular thing. So the bad guy in Extremis has the powers that we see in this movie, where like he breathes fire and stuff like that. But then when Tony takes Extremis, he rewrites it so it rewrites his biology differently. It's a much more open idea.
Yeah, it's sort of the start of what Fraction picks up on later with Bleeding Edge, because the whole idea from the beginning of that run is like Tony has upgraded physically as much as you can, so now it's about the humanity and what a person's mind is capable of. And that becomes the through line all the way through Director of S.H.I.E.L.D. to Fraction stuff.
And then into the beginning of Gillen's stuff, he brings Extremis back and has the first 5 issues are all one-shots with different people using Extremis differently.
Yeah, and I missed that, because that's part of what I like about Iron Man, is that from Michelini and Layton up to Fraction, it's kind of one story.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the crossing kind of messes that up.
A little bit. I mean, there's things here and there, like the second Michelini and Layton run screws with that a lot, but for the most part, it's one solid character arc.
I've always said, well, not always, but I've said before, Iron Man is. Michelini and Layton's run starts at 118. You can read from 118 to 318, and you mostly have one consistent 200 issue run of just great comics.
Well, 318 is the Kaminsky issue where I'm like, if you wanted to end Iron Man forever, end it on Kaminsky's last issue.
Yeah,
it's such a good last issue.
So talking about
a lot of Marvel characters have that, where there's already that place where it would have been a great place to not write them anymore.
Yeah.
So I laugh at this scene every time. I think it's kind of awesome.
I
love Christmas movies in the summer.
Yeah,
too. Well, that's a Shane Black thing.
Yeah, I'm aware of that,
okay.
And I knew that's what you say whenever I said it, but it's a thing I like. And he's not the only person who's ever done it.
No, but he does it consistently. But I was gonna say something, and then you made me feel bad. So
about the scene?
No, about that that apparently he knows everything I'm gonna say before I say it.
I love that.
No,
just that.
I've heard that
that's the only thing.
that when they showed this scene at Comic-Con, it was different Christmas music, and that if you know what the music originally was, how he's dancing actually fits the original music and not what we're hearing.
Oh, weird. I wonder
Oh,
why
that's
they changed
interesting.
it.
Maybe a rights thing? I don't know.
Maybe.
Oh,
So
that's unfortunate.
the Mandarin segments of this movie, there's 3. The third one I think is the best, but all of them are really, really well made. I love all of it.
They're fantastic. They look like terrorist videos.
They do, and I mean, the whole point of Mandarin being the embodiment of all of those abstract fears of terrorism is just a genius stroke.
Yeah.
Like,
The Mandarin
especially-
is our demon. It's what we are afraid of. We make our own demons. He is literally crafted to be everything that in the right now we are afraid of.
And what annoys me about that is like when Winter Soldier came out, the surveillance argument was fresh. When this came out, I think arguably it's more directly political than even Winter Soldier is, and no one talks about it that way.
Yeah.
Like, this
Good
is one
point.
of the most political comic book films ever.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, one of the most deeply political. I don't know how anyone can see this scene and not say this movie's a criticism of terrorist policy.
Well, and it's one of the things that they do with one of the things I think is fascinating about what they do with the Mandarin is everything he says are like real things. It's
Yeah.
kind of like how people came out of the Dark Knight and they're like, well, the Joker had some points. The Mandarin has points. And
Yeah.
then Killian at the end says, he doesn't really care about any of that. He just wants something that's going to make people, that's going to get people angry, which kind of plays on this idea of that like, leaders don't even have to believe, like, what they're saying can be true, and even that doesn't matter because they're just using it to prove a point. It has nothing to do with.
And it's all about a system, right? Like, Aldrich Killian is benefiting on both ends of the spectrum, and it's all about perpetuating a sort of cycle. There's a great book by a guy named Fanon called The Wretched of the Earth that talks about that. That talks about the idea of putting pressure on people, which creates violence, and in the end just creates this circle that criticizes the system. And that's totally what the Mandarin's point was by the end.
Yeah, it's almost a satire on satire. We're like, it's like, we all know that America has all these horrible things in its past. Bringing them up doesn't really explain or justify anything.
Exactly. And the fact that they just get dodged because there's a phase 2 attack.
Mm-hmm.
So I know people that have had panic attacks before, and they relate to these Tony scenes so much. Like, they think
I
they
don't
got
know
it
if I've
really
ever had anything that is actually describes a panic attack, but I've certainly felt similar to this occasionally.
Yeah, me too. I mean, it's done really well.
I love him making fun of the little kid. I guarantee you that was an improvised line on the day, but I really I think that joke's funny.
Well, so many people miss it. It's hilarious, but no one talks about that being one of the best jokes.
I also love that Einstein slept 3 hours a year because he totally did not sleep 3 hours a year.
No, there's no way. It's just physically not possible.
Because Tony Stark never exaggerates. I love you to Chris, and that's hilarious. Yeah, how is that not a thing everyone laughs at?
Yeah, it's a great joke.
Well, specifically because I'm younger, I know a lot of people that have never seen Christmas Story, so they just don't get the joke.
Really? I feel like...
And one of the things that makes it so funny is that kid can't possibly get that joke.
Yeah. Here it is. Oh, I love this.
He broke the crown.
You know, I misinterpreted that scene the first time I saw it. I thought that was part of his panic attack, like he was hallucinating the kid, and then on subsequent rewatchings, I'm like, no, he probably did lean in and say that. Tony just made it way more ominous than it really.
Yeah, Eric, I just now had that exact experience as you were saying that, where I was like, oh wait, no, it totally makes sense that kid would do that, because he publicly fell out of the wormhole. Everybody knows about that.
Yeah.
I think this is almost universally agreed, but Don Cheadle is a much better roadie than Terrence Stamp. Not Terrence Stamp. Terrence Howard.
Terrence Stamp made a great roadie, though.
He's much
Kneel before Iron Patriot!
I think this is the best Favreau is in all three films.
Yeah. Well, even Age of like every of all the Marvel movies, I think this is Rhodey's best.
Oh, absolutely.
And just all the supporting cast gets a lot more to do, right?
Yeah.
Like all of them.
Well, because I love that because it becomes about Tony realizing he has people, and so they become characters just for this movie.
Yeah, they had like a spark where maybe you could go someplace, and then they went someplace. You could also kind of tell in the performance that Favreau is enjoying not having to be on the other side of the camera.
I love how irrational he is. Where he's like, clearly somebody's trying to hide something. The human is the worst part of our human resources, or whatever he says. We haven't got that line yet, but
yeah, we'll get there soon. So Eric, I want to ask you about this, but one of my issues with Iron Man movie, I think we actually talked about this, but we'll get it on recording this time. One of my issues with Iron Man movies in general is that I don't like that Pepper runs the company and Tony doesn't. Just because the business is so to that character.
Yeah, we've talked about that.
Yeah, he's not Batman.
Well, I think it works within the movies because, especially after this one, we're not making more Iron Man movies. Like, so we would have to explain how someone who is running a corporation can also go over and be in the Avengers or show up in Captain America's movies. It just makes it a little bit easier, and it fits movie Tony a little bit more that he doesn't really care about the 9 to 5 of it. I really hope if we get another Iron Man film, we refocus on the corporate stuff, because I feel like each film gets less about that side of Tony's life. Well, like, this movie isn't really about Stark Industries at all. It's about some stuff that Tony's done in the past and weapons making, but it's not a corporate story.
Yeah, but I think part of it's also just like, given this movie, a natural extension of it would be to go corporate.
Mm-hmm.
And also just not to discount the Mandarin stuff, because most Iron Man 4 options would have to, if you involve the Mandarin, would inevitably undercut this movie. So just going corporate might fix some of that inherently.
At least parts of it. It would undercut parts of this movie.
Yeah.
I'll be real surprised if there is an Iron Man 4. And it's not somebody else becomes Iron Man after they, pass the torch or whatever.
Yeah, I really doubt there'll be a 4, but I just want one so badly.
Like, if that ever happens, I really kind of imagine it being Robert Downey, giving somebody else the suit.
I really hope that we get one more with Downey where he wraps up the Mandarin stuff.
Yeah.
Because
I keep getting the sense that they're probably going to do trilogies that aren't really trilogies, and then maybe eventually other people will come in and they'll either recast. They probably won't recast. They'll just pass the mantles down. Like, I could see a Captain America 4 that was Falcon.
Well, this movie kind of played on
or Bucky.
Well, this movie kind of played on an ending character-wise, and kind of gave us the Mandarin. We'll talk about that when we get there.
Yeah.
And then Marvel immediately backtracked. And that's why, like, I really want Iron Man 4. I'm like, okay, you told me that there is another The Mandarin out there. And then the Ten Rings was in Ant-Man. They keep teasing me.
Yeah, and it's weird that post-Iron Man movies, you would keep getting teased about that.
Yeah.
One of the things that really surprised me with this movie and came out of left field in a good way, and I didn't keep up with production or anything, so you guys might have known this when it came out, but I did not expect them to even scratch the surface of Rescue.
Oh, I mean, they really didn't. She wears it for like. Well, I remember when. I think in the trailer.
But they went farther than I thought they'd ever go.
I think in the trailer there was one shot of like the armor coming to her, and people thought that she was full blown Rescue in this movie.
Oh, okay. Well, people might have been disappointed by that. I don't remember.
Well, and this was the height of Rescue. She hasn't really been around since Fraction left. Well, not she hasn't really been.
She's all over Fraction's run precisely at this moment.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, given some of the books Marvel's publishing lately, you'd think Rescue would get her own book.
I'm surprised. I mean, they've got so many female-led books right now. But I also feel like Iron Man in the comics is, for whatever reason, not as exciting to people as he is in the movies.
Well, and I think I said this in our initial review. This is an Iron Man movie. People don't like Iron Man comics. I think that kind of goes somewhat to explaining why people don't like this movie, is that this feels the most Iron Man comics.
Yeah, like, I guess this is a little extreme, but like for me, Iron Man 1 and 2 are Robert Downey Jr. movies. This is the only Iron Man movie I've seen.
Well, and that's somewhat ironic given that 1 and 2 are building up to and setting up Avengers, and this is the Avengers Aftermath movie.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a really cool choice that you'd have, because you only had Incredible Hulk between 1 and 2, and we haven't really built the universe very much outside of Iron Man yet by Iron Man 2, and then the very next thing you do after you've assembled that team and done the big universe movie is another Iron Man movie where he has to deal with the fact that that's happened.
Well, it's not just that. This is probably, I think, maybe of all of Phase 2, except for maybe Age of Ultron, this is the most Phase 1 reactionary. Killian's entire plan is built around the fact that super people have started existing. His whole the entire idea of the Mandarin is like in the way that like you can view supervillains as like stand-in for things where like, why doesn't Superman stop natural disasters? Well, in Superman's book, he stops supervillains that are destroying cities, and that can kind of be represented as like a metaphorical thing. In this, they literally, if you were going to create a fake terrorist, you would create a supervillain. If supervillains are running around, you would make a fake supervillain.
Yeah.
The problem, though, is, I mean, it's not a problem, but I guess
with this movie.
No, but I guess the issue that I take with that, Eric, is if you didn't have supervillains in this universe, you could still play the Mandarin almost exactly the same way.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You totally could.
Because he's just a terrorist. I mean, he feels more comic book villain because of the set dressing and the fact that he looks like a villain we've seen in comics.
Yeah, but it's the same kind of theatrical presentation we get in real life, which is interesting. Like, there's been numerous comparisons about, like, 21st century terrorist problems being comic booky.
Hey, his armor is Mark 42. Is that
Mark 42.
Reference?
I was going to say that earlier, but then you guys were saying interesting things, so I decided not to interrupt you.
I'll defend pretty much everything of this.
That armor is the answer to the question of life, the universe, and everything.
It is, because it's perfect.
I actually prefer the reskin in Ultron, where there's a little bit more red in it. But I'll defend most anything about this movie. I think the bunny is funny. It is completely out of character, and he should know Pepper better than that.
Yeah, I don't understand that.
Okay, yeah.
That he does a couple things in this that made me feel like we were getting Iron Man 1 Tony
it's there for
not
a joke,
knowing how
it's
to
not there.
not knowing how to date, but I felt like Iron Man 2 had stuff like that too, where I was like, I feel like you would have gotten past this.
Well, I guess I'll defend that a little bit, because there are obviously moments here where Tony's really regressing, but I think the point of that is Aldrich Killian is basically Tony from the first movie gone wrong, so Tony's having to literally confront that at times makes him act differently. Like, the whole thing with him being afraid after the Avengers events is him testing how far he's actually come as a person. So there would be moments where he makes mistakes he probably shouldn't. And he understands that.
Yeah, but getting a dumb giant bunny for someone that is not frivolous like that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's going a little bit too far. That would be regressing yourself on purpose before it would be testing anything.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a problem, but I don't think it's that.
Oh, it doesn't break the movie. I'm just saying that.
No, but it took me out in the theater. I was like, I don't think he'd do that.
I love this scene. I don't want to get personal. I've had this argument. There have totally where you're reactionary and you're kind of being a jerk and you're like, oh well, I already ate food because I just assumed that you'd be eating food with so and so. I think it's a really human moment with Tony.
No, I agree. I think Pepper and Tony's relationship in this is the best it's ever been.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, most interpersonal problems come from communication breakdown.
Yeah.
Don't expect people to read your mind, but also make sure that you're talking to them.
Downey really sells this. Like, I think this is one of his best performances as Iron Man.
Well,
yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, well, I was gonna say I really love that he's like really trying to explain something it feels like he can't explain. Where he's like, I know it doesn't make sense. I'm Iron Man, but like I've been really badly affected by this, and like it really doesn't have anything to do with their relationship. It is just it's a personal thing for him, and he doesn't know how to deal with it.
And part of
And
it is like he's
it
trying to
affects
slow
their
his brain
relationship.
down. Like he's trying to live in the moment, but his head keeps racing in 100 different directions, and he doesn't understand like how to balance that anymore.
Yeah, and that the speech she gives when she walks down the stairs is demonstrating how far he's come because he's admitting so much. I mean, like, yeah, he's admitting that he's having a hard time coping with what happened in Avengers, but he's also admitting that he's not treating her right
Yeah.
because he's detached and he's throwing himself into his work because that's the only way he knows to how to
Yeah,
deal with a thing like that.
I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just explaining why I've been the way I am, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's saying there's no justification, and that's forget the bunny. This guy's come a long way when he can do that.
Yeah.
This scene was in the first trailer, and I was really worried we were gonna do like Man in the Iron, the Casada, like
Oh yeah.
AI armor thing.
I was really worried about that too. Part of the thing with him being able to control the armors remotely is that I was hoping we wouldn't do any of the stuff we got in John Byrne or Kaminsky's run where Tony's paralyzed. I'm glad we avoided that too.
I don't know what your hatred is of Tony Stark being paralyzed.
I
People are
just don't think they
paralyzed.
handled it well.
It happens all the time, especially in primetime television shows.
So can I say something that's really, really obvious because we'll get to more symbolic things later?
That man's Chinese theater isn't this like well put together. It's full of like street freaks and stuff.
No, I wasn't gonna say that,
Oh,
but
hey, there's a silver man. I never noticed that before.
You know what though, Eric? That was pretty obvious. I gotta say.
No, I was gonna say because we were at the armor scene, but the armor has more yellow because Tony's more afraid, and so he blows it up in symbolizing he's blown up the thing that made him afraid in the first place.
Can I just say I still don't fully understand this scene in regards to the plot?
The thing where he gives him the extremis formula.
Yeah, if he's part of the program, wouldn't he have already had it? And he says,
Well,
"Can you regulate?" And he says, "Yeah, I can regulate." As if like it's a thing you can control. I don't
well,
understand this scene.
well, he's setting him up to blow him up. The whole point is to give this guy the extremis so he blows up the theater. So this guy doesn't
But
know
why
he's gonna
does
be able
he
to.
want it, and what does he think it is?
He thinks it's just a way for him to like. It's like a drug addict thing. Like he thinks it's a way for him to like keep going.
Okay, I like I've always felt
But
like
does he
this
think
scene was
he's
kind
getting
of
something
problematic.
he's had before? Like, is
Yeah,
he a drug addict?
yeah, because he
He's
would
getting
have been
more of that
experimented
drug?
on by extremis earlier to get his limbs back, and so they need more of that. And in this scene, he's just kind of assuming he's getting more of that, but instead he's gonna blow up.
But
Okay,
nobody
so he
else
knows.
gets more of that.
Oh,
This
No,
guy
he
here
does.
never uses more of it, does
Yeah,
he?
he's got a scene where he gets more of it.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it happens because it's like a recharge thing, I'd assume.
Okay, I don't remember like Killian ever rejuicing up or this guy whose name I can't remember ever juicing up.
I don't think Killian does, but I know this guy does
Okay.
later at some point.
And why isn't he just named Malin? Why did they pick some weird obscure like villain that nobody's ever heard of to name him after? Why isn't he just the guy from Extremis that he looks like?
That's a good point. I haven't read Extremis in a while though.
It's something that's bothered me from like day one. Where I was like, this is clearly he should be the guy from Extremis.
This is the guy from 24 though, right, Cap? Jack
I
Bauer's
wasn't. I
protege?
wasn't looking close enough. Apparently. Wait, his protege in what season?
Ah, the season
In,
after Jack comes back and he's been doing drugs, whatever season that was.
I'm. I'm not sure if that's who that is or not.
I think
I wasn't looking real close.
I feel like that's who that is, but I don't remember.
Anyway,
Uh, John Favreau, like you guys said before, is great into this, and I'm surprised he decided to come back even though he wasn't directing. Like I'm not sure if
Well,
it's a contract thing.
he doesn't act a lot anymore, and I think he likes acting a lot,
yeah,
and
well,
he
and
likes doing comedy roles.
yeah, and he's not in this movie a lot. Like I think it's probably a movie he just showed up for a couple of days to shoot.
I gotta be honest with you though, it felt in the theater like he was all over it because he gets so much more screen time than he did anywhere else.
Mhm.
I mean, yeah, Iron Man 2 he got to do more than he did in the first one, and he's got that whole fight scene in the third act with Black Widow, but here I felt like, and maybe it's just because it's front loaded with him so much, I felt like he was all over it.
I think it's
the
also
first
just
time I saw it.
because his comedy plays a lot more in this movie than it does in the other two.
He's probably given more lines, just
So
overall.
this is, I think, like to me, this is like The Dark Knight. I don't know. I'm trying to think of, like, this is the Why So Serious scene, except it didn't catch on and everyone didn't constantly repeat this fortune cookie line because it's great.
I quote it all the time and no one knows what I'm talking
brilliant.
about.
Yeah, same here.
No one
I
ever
think
understands.
it might have if people didn't react badly to the Mandarin and he was actually the Mandarin, and B, if people weren't already quoting constantly "They'll never see me coming," which they were doing from the
That's
trailer.
true.
That's true. Yeah.
But
Like
this
that
is just such a great speech.
that became this movie's Why So Serious, and people have compared it to Why So Serious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Why So Serious wasn't exactly what I was going for, but I couldn't think of another Joker line.
Well, and that's the thing is that like Dark Knight, because that character was so popular, has like 12 of those.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've got a whole poster of all of them.
I do. I'm looking at it right now. I'm an agent of chaos. Like, nobody be impressed. I'm reading this off a poster.
So, in the commentary, they talk about how there is like a drop subplot that makes this
Oh,
Downton
Eric's
Abbey
done
thing.
it. He's done the commentary faux pas. He's referencing the commentary in the comment. Sorry.
Okay. Well, they say that there is a drop subplot about that makes the Downton Abbey thing actually make like that the Downton Abbey thing is part of another story that was cut, in that he has a thing for Pepper, and like he kind of steps aside and lets Tony take her kind of in like his mind, and that's the storyline that's going on in Downton Abbey that he's watching, is the servant steps aside and is like the bigger man and lets the woman be with the guy.
So
wish we got
that meant something.
Yeah.
I really wish we got that because they're married in the comics.
This guy is the least professional journalist of all time.
Why? Because he's doing this on a phone?
No journalist would ever say, "Hey, when's somebody gonna kill this guy?" Just say, like, could you imagine interviewing like even Bush or Obama, where it's just like, "Hey, you know Osama bin Laden? When's somebody gonna kill that guy?" I'm just saying.
I disagree. I think people said that.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know.
When you're talking about a terrorist that's like with massive body counts and people are afraid of another 9/11 and that kind of thing, like we're constantly saying go assassinate him.
And then also Tony doesn't get like exclusive professional political reporters. He also gets everyone else because he's more of a celebrity too. So that could just be one of those guys.
That's probably the TMZ guy.
Exactly. Like
that's why for a minute there I thought some of the actual reporters were just had cell phones, and then I was like, oh, there's a bunch of regular people.
Yeah, but I don't know if you remember this, but in our Iron Man and Iron Man 2 commentary, we talked about how the hologram technology kept like getting bigger, and how we predicted in Iron Man 3 we'd have a hologram room, and we have a hologram room.
We have a hologram room.
That's cool.
In Iron Man 4, he's gonna have a straight up holodeck.
Yeah, of course.
If that ever happens.
His whole mansion will be a hologram.
I don't know that the hologram thing has progressed into any of the other movies. Like I don't remember if we went farther than this in Ultron.
Not really.
No, but we don't see Tony's house.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, but he's using all the same
in Ultron.
Well, we have Avengers Tower.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Is it's not his house, but he's using all the same tech in Avengers Tower.
Yeah,
it's clearly all Stark tech they're using, and seems to be more advanced, or at least bigger than what he has here.
Yeah.
I mean, that mansion is massive.
I love how much a detective he is here.
Yeah, I mean,
and plus that building was supposed to be his new Stark building.
Yeah,
that's true. He was living in it in Avengers 1.
That's true. But yeah, I really like how much of a detective he's being, which makes sense. Like if you follow Shane Black movies, like he tends to write detectives. He really likes hard-boiled, noir detective stuff. And that this movie's a mystery, again, not a surprise. But I really like that Tony is kind of a detective here. I feel like that's a thing that we don't do enough in superhero movies.
Yeah,
especially
this is
Batman
movies. Detective mode.
And
he doesn't have to be a trained detective to do detective work when he's as smart as he is and has this kind of tech.
Yeah, I mean, he is just a smart guy. He would figure this stuff out more quickly than anyone with Shield because he's just got more resources.
So, Cap, are you going to complain about these scenes? I know you don't like these scenes.
I don't like these scenes.
What's wrong
Yeah,
with these
that he-
scenes?
Why are you putting words in my mouth and telling me what I
Because we've
like or don't
talked
like? And I
about
think
this
that I
before. You've complained to me that he's on security lockdown and he just lets her come in.
I am watching this with fresh eyes, man.
Okay.
It's been a long time. I mean, I should have watched this today, but we put this together real fast, and I did not have a chance to rewatch it.
Well, other people complain about it too, so I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to talk about the fact
No,
that
no, go ahead. I'm not. Honestly, this movie is not stuck with me at all.
a lot of people have talked about how he threatened the terrorists and he's just like sitting at home. He's like really out of it this whole movie. Like I like, to me, it's not character inconsistent that he doesn't think about the consequences of his actions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you could even you don't even have to go that far. Maybe it's just that he's not strategizing. His head's just in too many different places.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's proven when you get to the thing where he wakes up in Tennessee and he has no idea how he got there. He's dealing with so much
Yeah, he
at
doesn't
once.
even
He kind of
remember
forgets.
being like, "Hey, plot that course."
Yeah.
Lift that bale. Tote that barge.
I wish Maya Hansen was in more of this movie because as it
Me
stands,
too,
she's got
especially given that scene she has with Pepper later.
yeah, the scene she has with Pepper is one of the best scenes, and I wish we had more context around that.
Yeah. Again, from what I understand, it's on the cutting room floor.
Is there did they actually film a lot of this stuff or was it cut from the script?
Well, when she dies, that whole scene is different. If you look at the deleted scenes, there's a lot more of it's a self-sacrifice thing as opposed to a shock and awe thing.
Okay, it's weird because I guess it could work either way because it reminds me of the Warren Ellis thing that she's on Killian's team the whole time.
Yeah. Well, it's a little bit different in the war. In War Now, she's because again the scene that we have later with her and Pepper is really her from the comics, where the whole thing
Yeah,
is she is a scientist first, and so she unleashes this like monstrous abomination just to prove her science works so that they will continue funding her.
yeah.
Um, and that's what she is in this movie. We just only get a little bit of it.
And I guess to be fair, in this movie when she dies, it's not completely straightforward. It's a little bit vague as to if it's what she actually wanted.
Well, and I like that scene just because it's really shocking in a Marvel movie.
Yeah. I mean, I think most of this movie is like I'm so with Tony for the whole thing that every time something bad happens, it's kind of hard not to get
Mhm.
emotional.
Okay, Eric. The more I'm looking at this, I will say that is still kind of a problem for me.
I knew you were going to say that.
Mostly, but it's less about her walking in and more about you just threatened an international terrorist and you've taken no precautions with your house.
We just
Like,
explained why it's okay.
Yeah, but
what's
I
that?
still agree with Eric in that like his reasoning is so flawed right now that he would do that. And plus, he's got a
I'm
whole
not
army of armor
100%.
underneath. He's not thinking that it's going to be a problem.
I could see it if he was alone, but after the speech he gave Pepper and he's trying to think more about her and stuff, I don't know about it.
But he's not
Well,
necessarily successful at it. He's saying why he's bad at it, and that speech wouldn't make him better.
Yes, but he's clearly really conscious of the fact that that's happening and he's trying to internalize it more.
But it wouldn't
yeah,
work
but
right
people
away, is
do
my
that
thing.
all the time.
Yeah.
Yes, but
Look,
this is
I
such an
understand I
extreme
have this problem
scenario.
and I'm trying to do better, but I'm not doing a
No,
good
no, no.
job at it.
I get that, but that's not. It doesn't become a problem until you threaten an international terrorist and you just go home.
Well, to
It
be
would be fine if he
fair,
lived alone. If she wasn't there, okay. But like the fact that she's there and he just threatened an international terrorist.
But I don't know, he did so
well,
without
and
even
she's
thinking about
packing
her.
to
He did
leave.
it because of Happy. He didn't do it for any reason connected to her at all. So her being in the house
Yeah,
is almost a
it's
surprise.
and she's packing to
But
leave.
but the guy could come at any time. He has to expect this.
I don't know. I feel like he's so out of it enough that he wouldn't.
He expects the
Okay,
unexpected,
I'm
and the
not convinced of
unexpected
that.
is that he's not going to get attacked.
I mean, like he never saw him coming, and that's ridiculous.
And I really love it's a little thing. I really love that the attack helicopters are disguised as newscopters.
Oh yeah, me too.
Oh, that is cool. I didn't pick up on that.
I
That's
also love
such a
this whole
great
action
like little
sequence.
social commentary thing that I really like.
I love how he's like
I also love
problem
this action
solving,
scene with the suits
taking
out.
them out. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, the flavor of this is completely different from anything we've had in these before this.
And I think even after, like none of the other Marvel movies feel like this.
But at the same time, this does feel like a Shane Black movie. I mean, it's bigger and more expensive, but like
Yeah,
it is flavored with the person making it.
yeah. Well, especially when
Yeah,
you get to the end with
absolutely.
Rhodey.
But
Yeah.
I think it's important to note that a good number of people that watched this would not be aware of that or would have ever seen his films.
Oh no, and I
And
am completely willing to admit that part of my love of this movie comes from a bias of him being my
that
favorite
you're a
street.
big fan of his work, and you were probably really glad that he didn't try to change his MO too much.
Yeah.
That he's just making one of his movies. And I think that his style and sensibilities fit this material really well, but it it doesn't feel like an Iron Man 3 as much as it feels like a new sort of Iron Man in a way. Like it's the same character and
It
everything,
is
but
not the conclusion to a trilogy. It is the
no.
next Iron Man story.
But
Yeah,
these have but they've kind of made it really clear that they're not trying to make complete trilogies given that every movie is building on the last. Well,
Well,
not
and
every
this
movie,
was
but a lot of
sold.
movies are building on the
I
last.
mean, to be fair, this was sold as the conclusion to the trilogy.
but I mean, to be fair, I still think
It
like it's the three movies. Just these three work as one solid character arc all the way
It
through.
works. It works
it,
from a
work, it works
character
as a character
perspective,
arc,
but not
but
a
it's better.
plot perspective.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. It's
yeah,
better on well, and not an aesthetic perspective either. It. So you look at the Captain America movies, and I know you guys haven't gotten to see Civil War yet, but
Why don't
like
you just
each of
keep bringing that up? Why don't you just keep rubbing our nose in that?
no, I don't mean to, but I have to say that to say this, because this will come out before a lot of people have seen that, and that's to say that like each of those movies is kind of in a different genre and vein than the last in a way. These I don't think are trying to do that,
yeah. No, that's
and
fair. But I think part of why like, the trilogy thing for me just works because it's a character thing. It's not a proper trilogy by any means, but so much of the callbacks to the first two movies make this one better. Like you can't watch it.
And
oh,
this
sure.
movie, this but
It doesn't
so,
stand alone, certainly, but
but also
also
this movie needs Avengers as much as it needs.
you need
Iron Man.
Avengers. That's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah, like so it's more like a 3.5 or a 4,
Yeah,
right?
well, I mean,
Like
also Winter Soldier needs Avengers, so like it's just a Marvel thing.
yeah,
And then I
Yeah.
would assume Civil War needs Ultron.
Civil War needs everything.
I kind of figured. I kind of hoped that would be the case anyway.
But
I don't think I'm giving too much away by saying
So
that. It
one
needs a lot of stuff.
one thing I wanted to mention while we were in the action scene is that in the comics, Tony is kind of James Bondian, and I like that the score for this movie has that a little bit.
yeah, oh, absolutely. I also want to mention something in the action scene, but then we kind of got sidetracked on more interesting discussion.
Sorry.
I love that action scene is flavored with where Tony is at that moment. It is
Oh
very
yeah,
edge of your seat. He is just like, by the skin of his teeth, he's getting by. Nothing's working right, and he's just trying to make the best of it.
which
One of
is
the
like his
things that
whole thing for the whole movie, right? Like that's his whole character arc is just make it work.
one of the things that it really does have in common and is building on and drawing from a lot from the first one is how in his head we are and how much of a character study it is for him, and two is trying to sort of do that, but it doesn't really pull it off as well, and we move away from him too much in that movie. Here I feel like I'm kind of with him the whole time, even when I'm not with him.
Well, and one of the
And of
things,
course, there are obvious parallels to make between his getting stranded and alone in the first movie for his origin and that happening here. There's definitely a bookend.
one of the things, and I haven't seen Civil War like some people, but
Look, I'm sorry, I don't know how to not bring it up. Like, I mean, I'm not going to bring it up constantly, but anyway.
one of the things is that also
I'm going
makes
to bring it up
this-
one more time, but you'll never see it coming. Sorry.
one of the things that also makes this work as a trilogy, but also with Avengers, that makes this feels slightly finalized, is the evolution of the armor across the four films, where each film gives us a slightly new thing that the next film then picks up on and then does better. So you have just the armor, and the second one gives you the suitcase armor. Avengers gives you the armor that like he can kind of comes to him on the wristwatch, and then here is the armor that comes in pieces, and like there's a real natural evolution of that technology. And then when we get to Ultron, it's kind of like, it's done. Like this is what the pinnacle of Iron Man technology is. We can't really think of anything past this. So I don't know if his armor does anything new in Civil War, but it does seem like this film kind of crystallizes his armor in that aspect.
Yeah, and I brought this up before I think we were talking about Civil War,
but luckily not literally crystallizes it, because that seems like a really bad idea. Like,
Crystal's unbreakable, right? No, that's diamonds. Oh, that'd be bad.
yeah, no, crystal does break, Eric, a lot. Yeah, the crystal armor. He's got armor that comes from a piece of crystal that he's drinking wine out of. Like, he touches it and then it goes all over his body. That looks really awesome, but nobody touch me, because it's gonna break.
I think we were talking about this when we talked about the Civil War comic, but one of the things about Iron Man armor in the comics is that sometimes it does this, other times it doesn't, but I like the idea of the armor being symbolic of whatever Tony's going through, and that's absolutely here in this movie.
Oh, absolutely.
I love that. Also, I love the kid. I know a lot of people don't. I think he's great.
I want to talk about the kid, because I feel like what he is and what people think or knee-jerk reaction thought he was are two different things.
Yeah,
I feel like his inclusion is almost more... It's a character piece indie drama thing of you meet someone who represents your younger self, and I think most people saw it and knee-jerk reactioned, oh, because you have to remember this was the first post-Disney incursion film, because Avengers was put out by Disney, but they were kind of already making that before that happened. This is the first Disney film, and I think people knee-jerk reaction was like, oh, they put a kid in it, and it's way more complex and mature than, oh, they put a kid in it.
Yeah. No, I think the relationship is absolutely fascinating, and it's got nothing to do with the Disney thing, and that makes me wish, because I know Marvel, I'm sure they didn't bring him back because of the reaction to this movie, but I wish this kid kept going with Robert Downey Jr. through the rest of the Avengers.
He signed for 4 movies.
He needs to come back. Like, I was talking about this on Twitter at one point, but like, one of my dreams for a future Iron Man film is like this kid grows up and takes over.
Well, it's so... He could also become a bad guy, and I think that could be interesting too. He is, at this moment, Tony as a child, and it's very much Tony interacting with himself as a child in a very metaphorical way.
Yeah,
and I think him going bad could be an interesting way. Killian and Harley are kind of mirror reflections of Tony at earlier stages in his life.
Yeah, I think all the side characters are there. Like Haley is Tony at a younger age. Killian is what Tony used to be in Iron Man 1, and
even Maya Hansen probably represents what he started
like the creative force. Hansen is kind of the thing that he comes to by the end of this when he just becomes the mechanic.
I relate a lot to Tony Stark as a character because he likes tuna fish sandwiches.
I will eat tuna fish, but it's not my first choice.
It's my only choice on a sandwich.
I don't eat fish.
I love that it discourages bullying. There's something about that turn of phrase I really like.
I like that too. That's good. So at some point earlier, I mentioned that Marvel is really bad at making posters, and I still stand by this. But I think Iron Man 3 had some of the best.
That's because I threw it in your face.
Well, no, you threw that one in my face, but then earlier there was a scene where Tony's pulling the armor in the snow by a rope, and that was a poster, and I wish I had that.
Yeah.
I love that shot.
Steve post on Twitter, Iron Man, or like Marvel, I love you. You need to stop doing bad posters, and I just sent him just the picture of the one where Tony's falling, the armor's breaking.
Which is a great poster.
Okay, so this scene right here is the explanation for everyone that's going to complain for why he can't use all of the armors at any point, is there's all these debris on it. I know it's a throwaway line that we only established once, but this is why he can't use the armor, all of those armors throughout the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
I love the blue here, and I kind of want an Iron Man armor that has that blue in all the seams.
Well, see, I wish we'd get away from the yellow and gold somewhere, right? Like, the comics do it predominantly, but there are places where he has different colors, and if we had a more blue-oriented armor, that'd be great. If he actually had a stealth armor, that'd be great.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's why I love all the extra armors at the end, because they feel like comic book Iron Man armor.
And some of them are.
Yeah, and some of them are. We get to see him wear a Silver Centurion again.
I'm interested to see if now that Whedon's gone, if we might go back to the triangle or a different symbol, because Whedon is very anti-triangle. And I agree, I think the circle looks better, but it was a very deliberate choice to get rid of the triangle and not let it come back.
Yeah. Well, I don't like the triangle either. Part of the problem with the triangle is also in the comics that some people draw it badly.
Yeah.
I just thought it was odd that the triangle disappears, and unless I'm wrong and I don't remember the scene, there's no discussion about it, because Iron Man 2 plays it almost like it has to be that shape to work.
No, it's not. It doesn't even really play it like that. The thing inside his arc reactor stays a triangle, and that has to be a triangle apparently. But
Yeah.
the
But
armor
Does that
just,
still stay that way,
itself
though?
doesn't.
yeah,
Does
yeah,
his arc reactor still have the triangle?
yeah,
Okay, well, if
that's
it still has a triangle in it, that's awesome. I mean, that's fine. But like, I thought it changed
I
to a circle
love
too, and I'm like,
this. Sorry.
we created a new element. I'm like, yeah, the triangle.
I love this so much, even with
Me
or
too.
without the Mandarin twist. I love how much mystique is taken away from videos like this by showing that they have to actually set up a set and cameras. I
Yeah.
think it's fantastic.
Yeah, no, I love that. And it goes back to what you were saying earlier about the newscasters being thrown away. That part of why any sort of plan like this works is because of the power of media and the illusion you create simply by shooting something.
Yeah, I love that. Just
And
like
he stays in character all the time.
in that initial like pan through we just did, that like even like the smoke, which in the videos has this very like it brings this real strong like aura and sense to the videos, and then you see it's just incense burners, like it's like everything is artificially created, and that's how videos like that are made. And I think
Yeah.
regardless of the twist of the Mandarin, I think that just shot is kind of brilliant.
Yeah. Well, I love the way Ben Kingsley plays it. Like throughout all of this, he's just so good.
Yeah.
Um, I I want to go back to what you guys were saying about the kid, because that was really interesting discussion, and I didn't jump in on it. Eric, I liked your idea of if he was to be brought back, it might make a lot of sense for him to become a villain, because Tony tends to accidentally ruin everything he touches.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Tony raising, or not raising, but mentoring a kid like this to be too much like himself, and then to create this mirror of himself where like he wishes maybe in a way he was a little bit more like Captain America, and this is his way of helping someone and being more altruistic and being about somebody else, and then it blows up in his face when he turns somebody into the narcissist he is. I'd love to see that played out.
Now, well, can I tell you? Can I play devil's advocate and tell you why that idea is a bad idea, even though it was my idea?
Sure, Eric. I just gave Eric a great explanation for why his idea was great. Now he's going to tell you why it's not. Go ahead.
It will be the fourth film where he's fought a mirror image of himself.
Well, that's a good
Yeah.
point. Yeah.
I think
Well,
it's a
and
great
also,
idea.
I wouldn't say it would be the very next movie. It seems like if you were to do it, it would
You'd
be
wanna let him age
farther
a
out
bit,
than
yeah.
that. And now that I'm thinking about it, it sounds like a better idea for a comic, really.
Yeah,
But
which is one of the complaints about this film that I kind of will
like
give
Steve,
people.
sorry, I gotta say this real quick. Steve, imagine if you did the Remender Captain America thing with Iron Man,
With
and like,
the kid.
well,
With the
yeah,
son?
like
Oh
what
yeah,
would it
yeah.
be like
In
if
Dimension
Iron Man
City.
had that?
Yeah.
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 I've
No,
also
that.
read that run. I don't know why you're just talking to Steve.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Just leave.
Well, I actually haven't read that run, but I've heard Steve and Dan talk about it. It's so
okay.
good. I haven't. I just haven't gotten to it.
It's
Steve actually
great
Chris-
until
years ago.
Nuke or after Nuke, and that kind of falls apart.
Yeah.
Doesn't
I
fall.
don't-
Duke, it falls apart.
I don't like the Falcon Cap stuff is the big thing, but no. No,
Sorry.
you're absolutely right about the thing with the mirror reflection being like the fourth time he sees it, but that's partly why I want him to be the next Iron Man. I just kind of want him to be like, let's take all of Tony's faults, talk about them, and then throw in a kid that's exactly the opposite and is good, and we make him Iron Man, and then we turn Bucky into Captain America, which would just reverse those two characters completely.
That's really interesting.
Or Harley's entire motivation is he sees all the foibles, and his weakness is that he is trying to be better.
Yeah.
He's trying to do better. He's trying to be the superior Iron Man.
And
Okay.
I haven't seen Civil War or anything, but I would have loved to have Harley come back in that movie and be part, or at least be part of the discussion of Team Iron Man or Team Cap.
Is Harley in the movie, Cap?
I just don't want to say things
Oh, that
at
means
all.
Harley's in the movie.
I feel bad about earlier, but no, that character is not in Civil War.
I just want to. This is gonna be nothing to anybody. My friend J Train, who
Anybody that's
does
mad that I gave away that character is not in that movie, it's Eric's fault.
my friend J Train, who does videos on his own channel sometimes, occasionally.
He
He
hasn't
was
posted
almost in this
forever.
scene as an extra. Well, not
Oh,
almost
really?
in this scene. There was a casting call like 2 towns over for extras for this scene, and he was going to go and just didn't have time because of work. But theoretically, he could have been in this scene.
Which I should mention, this part of the movie is filmed in North Carolina, which is where I am right now. And apparently Marvel does a lot of their stuff in between like North Carolina and Georgia.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've never ran into anything of that of like what they film or like seen signs or ads for it, but apparently that's what they do.
I
I
can't
feel
figure
like
out whether. Sorry.
no, you're fine. Good.
I can't figure out whether MIA being clearly AIM is clever or not, because MIA is a military term, and I can't figure out whether. Because later Tony has that moment where he flips around, and he's like, "Oh, it's AIM." I can't figure out whether it's dumb or clever.
I think it's kinda
Uh,
clever.
I'm gonna lean more toward dumb.
Well, good. So I don't know. Steve thinks it's clever, and you think it's dumb. We just covered all of the opinions on that one.
All the potential opinions on that little thing.
I really like this. I,
I
I
do too.
think I think the tendency in films is to usually write local police as just kind of, the dumb guys that go along with whatever the government says. I really like these, like, I don't even care if you have a badge, like, you just showed up and started beating people up.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love this whole most of the action scenes in this movie are great, but I love this one in particular.
And this is kind of horrifying.
It
Like,
is.
they don't really show it because it's a PG-13, but the concept of superheating a police badge and then smashing somebody's face. And there's
Yeah.
something very Joker about how her face moves there. I don't know what that is.
I like this actress. I don't know who she is, but I like her a lot.
The
Yeah, I
cop
don't
guy in that
really know.
scene, I see doing character things in TV and movies sometimes, and I don't know his name right off, but he was a character in one of my favorite episodes of Star Trek: The Next Generation called the Drumhead, and he's this like one quarter Romulan kid, and I always think of that guy as looking like he's like 14, and every time I see him in things now, and he's like 40 something, I just like I can't and gain a lot of weight, and I'm just like, it's so weird seeing the Simon Tarsi's like baby face on that guy.
Okay,
So
there's a moment that we missed. It's a really little moment that I really like as a weird acting choice, but I have no idea why it was made. Where he, not Malin, is holding a cup of coffee. He tips it towards Tony like, "Hey, how you doing?" And then tosses the liquid out of the cup. And I don't know why he does it,
I
but
love that.
it's a great little thing.
I like that. Yeah, I love that touch. It's fantastic. People listening to this can't see this, but we're recording this, and Cap and I are on video at least. And part of the problem with talking about this movie and listening to people talk about this movie is I don't want to. I just want to watch it. I just want to keep watching and not talk because there's so much about it that I just enjoy.
You see, I'm not on video for the same reason, like, because you're looking at the screen. I was like, oh, well, my TV's to the side. I'm not going to be looking at the computer. That's
I
a great
kept my
line.
computer at the side, so I have to keep like actively
These are
turning my head.
these are the sort of like fascinating behind the scenes things that we usually ask people to go to Patreon for.
I also love his
And
joke.
that's a great little thing.
I love his joke earlier where he's talking about what was it, Cheap Trick and something. It could be his autobiography.
Cheap trick and a one-liner.
Yeah, Cheap Trick and one liner. Yeah, I love that. That's awesome. I want that to be a book now.
That could be Shane Black's autobiography title.
It could. You're right.
Is there any AC/DC in this movie?
I don't think so.
Don't think so.
Well, I have the
think you
soundtrack
might
for this.
hear
I listen to it a
AC/DC
lot, and there's no way.
shirt at
That
some-
seems like an oversight when you had two of them that had a lot of AC/DC in
Well, the
them.
first one only has one AC/DC, and then AC/DC just like the movie, and the second one is like all AC/DC.
And they sold that movie so hard on that first movie on that AC/DC song
Yeah.
that like it's no surprise that it became a big thing in the second one.
So I've actually got the album on my phone. Apparently, the soundtrack is called Heroes Fall, and there's lots of stuff on here like Imagine Dragons and Passion Pit and Rogue Wave and all that.
Oh
but
man, I've got to get that soundtrack.
It's so good. I listen to it all the time. It's great, but none of it's AC/DC, and I kind of like that because their music just wouldn't fit with this.
No, it wouldn't. It wouldn't. And that's what I'm saying is it's a very different kind of thing.
So really interestingly, there is a whole subplot cut from this scene that you can see in the deleted scenes.
Which one?
About Harley choosing. You meet Harley's bully, and him choosing to save his bully who gets caught in this. It's a whole thing. But yeah.
Oh, that's cool. I kind of wish we got that.
That is cool, especially in paralleling those characters.
I guess the big thing with this is like all the deleted scenes sound interesting, and I want them in the movie just because I want more of this movie. But I think part of the problem, partly why they may have cut them, is because so much of it works because you're following Tony 90% of the time.
Oh yeah, no.
Yeah.
A lot of those scenes are good, but I totally understand why they're cut for pacing issues. I love that little arc reactor thing that comes from Ultimate Armor Wars.
I do too. That's awesome.
Okay, this might be a redundant question, Eric.
Okay.
But this follows up from a statement you made earlier, which is, or that you guys both were kind of making, that this is a really good comic book Iron Man movie. Do you think that part of the reason you guys like this movie so much more than a lot of people do is because you've read so much Iron Man? Like, if I went back and did what Steve did last summer and read everything, would I much more appreciate this movie?
I think so, yeah.
Probably. Well, see,
if you liked the comics that you read, I think that's the issue. Is a lot of people think Iron Man comics are boring and they don't like them. If you do like them, if you're not put off by the Mandarin twist, because there are plenty of Iron Man fans that hate this movie based solely on that twist, yes, I think you'll like this movie more.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely true.
There's a lot of caveats, but yeah.
But I would also say that when I initially saw this movie, I wasn't an Iron Man fan, and initially I didn't like it. But by the time I came to love it, I still wasn't an Iron Man fan. I think just independently as a film, it's brilliant, and then I like it even more because of that child.
And to me, that is the ultimate, like, no, this is not because it's a Disney film. A Disney film would never let you be that mean to a child.
I love all those scenes. Yeah. So it's so funny.
And we missed it earlier, but there's the really obvious. Sorry.
I also don't know why people thought that, because Disney, had already bought Marvel a couple years before this.
Well, but I think this was the first movie that, as I recall, this is the first movie that came out since they bought it that wasn't already in production. Like, Avengers was the first one, but they were already making that movie.
I gotcha.
So this was the first one from concept to execution.
Yeah, because I remember you guys in the commentary were talking about, like, would this have the Disney logo in front of it?
Yeah, that's right.
Because it was before that came out. But this is my favorite Mandarin short. This whole thing, the speech he gives at the end, where he's like, kiss your children goodbye, because nothing's going to stop me from getting you. It's brilliant. I love, every time I show someone this movie, this is the first clip I show them.
I accidentally stole a line from this the other day while I was writing something, where he refers to someone where he says, Thomas Richards, good strong name, good strong job. I stole that. And I didn't even realize it. I wrote good strong name, good strong job.
That's what happens when you watch a movie that you love 30 times.
See, I have that with Winter Soldier and Age of Ultron all the time. I keep like writing those movies without
how much emotion he has when he says, and I'm sure he's a really good guy.
Me too.
Like, in his eyes, there's so much there.
And then again, after he shoots him and says nothing's going to stop him, like, there's just so much conviction.
And I want to say there was an article somewhere. There was like a psychology article on this scene on what he does here with not answering the phone, like, is like a brilliant psychological tactic.
Oh no, it absolutely is. Back when I was a freshman in college, I think this movie came out like a few months, maybe. I don't remember when it was.
Okay, you guys only have 10 more seconds to have this conversation. Okay, good.
Okay, hold on. I have a question about this right here. If he called him, how come the president picking up the phone makes it ring?
No, he didn't call him. He set it up so he hits the button to call him.
No, he's like blinking, right? Oh, okay.
No, it wasn't blinking. It was like a hack, so you click the call button.
He says, call me. He hacks the phone, and he has to press the button to make the phone call.
Oh, okay. I don't think that's how phones work.
Well, it's a hack.
It is if you hack them.
It's a hack.
And then you have it go the other direction.
There it is. Oh, that's so good. I love that. Anyway, I was saying back when I think I was a freshman, but after this movie came out, and I took a psychology class, and I actually saw papers based on this movie and its ideas of post-traumatic stress and the Mandarin's ability to warp people's ideologies. There's so much literature on this movie that no one knows about because there's so few people think it's as good as I think me and Eric do.
And think that it's got as much meat
Well, and
in
it's interesting
the
because
social
people
commentary
came
department.
away from this movie saying, I know people that are like, it was too jokey. Well, like, people thought it was too jokey and didn't take itself seriously enough. And I feel like it is a very serious film that is
Yeah.
full of jokes.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, it's a Shane Black movie.
Yeah. This is a great scene.
Yeah, I
No,
love.
this is not the one that I thought it was. No, this is.
Also,
Yes.
also the Marvel movies have, leading up to this, already kind of had that track record and have developed more of that track record since then.
Yeah.
Of sometimes being really heavy films with a lot of, usually I think, pretty organically comedic moments that come from things that are just that would be naturally funny in the moment. Like that's how real life works.
And that's the thing
Um,
I think a lot of people criticize Age of Ultron for and praise Winter Soldier for, where Age of Ultron's got a lot of jokes, but that's just because it's Joss Whedon. It's a Joss Whedon movie, and Winter Soldier has very few. But if you look at it, they're all over the place, and the material makes it so you're not thinking about them as jokes.
See, I always resist even thinking about it like how many jokes are in the movie, and much more, does it have
There's
levity,
42
and
jokes. There are 42
are
jokes.
people, being real people?
No, I absolutely agree with you. It's just a matter of like I've seen that movie so many times, so there are times where I like count how many jokes are.
I'm just saying I hate that people think about it like that.
Well,
Okay,
people have.
this is another thing where there was a bunch of stuff cut. Tony like throws like a smoke bomb in here. Like there's a reason it's at this pageant is because there's news people there, or he throws the reason because all we see is a pageant and then like there's ambulances and stuff. That's because Tony throws like a smoke bomb in, makes it look like there's a fire and everyone comes to help. He engineers this whole thing so that they cut it.
I'm.
Oh, they shouldn't have cut
Yeah, I
that.
feel like we don't really need that explanation, but it's cool, and I would want to watch it. I have to go watch
Yeah, yeah.
the
No one
scenes.
ever questions like why are there ambulances and fire trucks outside of this fashion show, but which is exactly I think why it's okay that they cut it because nobody notices.
Well, I just kind of
Yeah, but now
assumed
that
like
you
if you
say it, I can't unsee it.
I just kind of assumed that like you have a fashion show, you have all these trucks in this small town, maybe the police just show up just as a code thing. Because that happens here all the
Wherever
time.
there's fashion, there's firefighters.
This is just the only joke in the movie that doesn't play for me. But I like it thematically because it is about Tony confronting his reflection, so he does it here
Once again,
literally.
he sees a mirror image of
Yeah.
himself as, but this is the mirror image that he's never been.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's funny that he literally sees it and it's at that point like, oh, I get the theme of my movie now. But I think it works. It's just the kind of humor here isn't my sensibility, really.
Well, and if you look at the like blooper reels for this movie, there are like 17 different versions of this joke, and they just kind of picked one.
Okay,
We're
that
like,
makes sense.
we're like he says something different when he shows his tattoo, and then Robert Downey Jr. says a different response. So it's just one of those scenes, I guess.
No, yeah,
Well,
that
Hey,
makes
look,
if
sense.
there's
you're
Oracle.
directing,
Remember Oracle from Iron Man 2?
Oh yeah.
if you're directing Robert Downey, you have to be the sort of director that knows how to deal with people that do a lot of improv.
Well, and obviously Shane Black is kind of the guy that resuscitated his career with Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. Kiss
Yeah,
Kiss
that's
Bang
true.
Bang is the reason he gets Iron Man.
Yeah. Well, Joss Whedon talks about this a lot, where he says like for Tony Stark, he writes arcs and he writes certain lines that symbolize those arcs. All the rest of the dialogue is basically just talking to Downey. Like it's really hard to write that character because it's just Downey's personality. I like this plot a lot after Winter Soldier because Bucky loses his arm and the movie is about soldiers and military conditioning and such. And so you get some of that here of like what happens after the war.
And super nerd like comic book geek moment or reference. Her name's Ellen Brandt. That
Oh
is
yeah.
that is Man Thing's wife who
Yep.
sells him out to AIM and is an AIM operative.
Oh, that's really
I
interesting.
love stuff like that. I've read very little Man Thing, but I have read the stuff with
Well,
him.
I've always wanted to him and Howard the Duck because Steve Gerber seems really interesting.
He's
isn't
weird.
Man Thing is it Man Thing that's supposed to be in Guardians 2, or is it some other
Is Man
horror
Thing in
monster like
Guardians?
that?
I don't know.
There's something like that in Guardians. In the next Guardians movie.
Well, he is the guardian of the Nexus.
I'm sitting here trying to think if it's somebody else, and I'm
Someone
messing
will
this
tell
up.
us in the
I think
comments.
Yeah,
I
I'm
15
think it's
sure.
people
Man
will
Thing.
tell us in the comments.
Oh yes, absolutely. People keep up way better than me. I don't know why they don't have their own channels that are bigger than mine.
I like that he talks to himself here. I know people have issue with that because it's just him explaining to the audience, but every time I get a eureka moment, I do talk to myself. So
I really like two things about this. I love that earlier in the film he says, "When is a bomb not a bomb?" and
Yeah,
he answers it here
me too.
when
I
it's a
love that
misfire.
callback.
And
Yeah.
I also love that he has figured it out, but he has not, because he still doesn't know the Mandarin's not real. Like
Yeah.
there is a real sense
Yeah,
of furtherance of knowledge of the character, but he doesn't have all the pieces yet.
And
This
it's
and that
scene,
timed
makes
really
it
well,
this
right?
is
Like
the
it's halfway through
scene
the
that
movie.
makes me wish
that
there
makes
was
it a
a
better mystery for the audience, but then it risks coming too far out of nowhere.
So
Which just playing devil's advocate has gotten to be the reason that so many people hate that Mandarin reveal, because he seems so super interesting, and then it's not a character,
so
and that we never would have called it.
This is
yeah,
such a great speech.
it is. I One of the things one of my favorite professor does every time we write in any philosophy class is that he gives us like one line out of an entire book, and we have to explain the entire book analyzing only that line. If I were to do that with Iron Man 3, it would be this speech. Just her lines here are symbolic of the entire movie. And she plays it so well.
Eric, real quick, going back to Tony talking to himself, this might be a stretch for some people, but he's alone when he doesn't have the kid. He doesn't have anybody to talk to, and he's used to having Jarvis around.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's a great
Yeah,
point.
that's a great point.
This is a really Bondian scene.
It is. Well, the whole movie's kind of James Bondy, yeah.
Yeah.
This feels like not it feels like a Dalton movie, weirdly.
Yeah, yeah. Now that you say that, yeah.
Like I don't know what it is, but every time I watch this, I feel because it's because in the '70s Timothy Dalton looked exactly like Tony Stark, and I'd want a '70s Iron Man movie with Dalton.
Oh man, that'd be great. I don't want a 70s Iron Man movie because that would look terrible, but Dalton would
It
be
would
great
look
for it.
awful, but the way he looked in the '70s was just off the page Tony Stark, and every time
Yeah,
I see this,
especially when
movie,
you look at
it's
like
James Bondy.
uh Flash Gordon, where he has a full-blown goatee.
Oh yeah, there's so many great movies he could have made when he was younger that we just never got or couldn't have.
I really like this line. Yes, you're free if you weren't already.
I do like that. I like that Rhodey becomes Iron Patriot as a PR thing. Like it's
I
Yeah,
about
don't
it.
like how easy he goes down here. His
Wait, in
hand
this,
gets burnt and he's just down.
well, I figured like the extremis thing was just going through his system and turned off the suit.
But it's still on.
yeah, and it doesn't seem all that messed up.
That's true.
Because usually the heads up display would be all like screwed
Yeah.
up and wonky.
Rhodey, as cool as he is, does get a kind of shaft in this movie. Like if Pepper can wear the suit, how come Rhodey can't in the middle of that last action scene?
My guess is that okay. This is my explanation for why Rhodey can't use one of the armors at the end of the movie.
Okay.
All of those armors are coded to Tony because they're in storage. The one that he was working with currently, he hadn't coded yet to himself,
Oh,
so that's why he was able to send on Pepper. That is my explanation for it.
that makes perfect sense. Okay, I can go with that.
That's not exactly in the movie, but yeah.
I
It's
can see that.
not in the movie. The movie doesn't
Yeah, like
contradict what I just said.
No, it doesn't. I just understand why people complained about that.
no, I mean
Yeah,
it's a
no, that's
question,
fair.
but it's not a question that's. It's not like
It's not a
Dark Knight
movie
Rises where the
critic.
movie has
It's not
problems for
killing
not
it.
explaining it.
Well, it's not a character thing. It's not a character motivation problem. It's maybe a convenient in the scene we wanted certain people to wear armors and certain other people not to wear armors, but it doesn't make anybody act out of character or
I
And
don't think.
and
Sorry,
importantly, Rhodey wearing an armor doesn't make that scene better at all.
well, going back to what you were saying before about Rhodey getting shafted, I don't think Rhodey gets shafted. I think War Machine gets shafted. I think the War
Okay.
Machine armor is like totally punked in this movie multiple times,
Yeah.
and it's only when he's in that armor. Whenever Rhodey's not in that armor, he's awesome.
Awesome. Yeah, he's fantastic. I love the takedown of the Mandarin Mansion. By the way, This is my favorite panic moment. There's only 3 in the movie, but I think this is the best one. Which is interesting. There's 3 panic moments and there's 3 Mandarin films.
You guys notice how Steve is like the Count from Sesame Street?
And going back to also what you said, I agree. We didn't talk about it before. I think repainting War Machine as Iron Patriot is one of the most realistic things of a PR move that we have in a
Yeah.
superhero movie.
No, it's genius. I love it. It's such a good idea.
When I first heard that they were going to do Iron Patriot in this, I couldn't imagine what they would do with it, and that was the thing I was really really impressed with.
Yeah, I think it works really well. I also Hot Toys apparently just makes their whole living off of this movie because they keep
Yeah,
releasing armors based on the final action scene here. But they also released one of Tony like this, where he's got
yep,
all the
Really?
gadgets.
yeah, that figure's amazing.
I want it because it's got everything. It's got all
If
the little
memory
gadgets.
serves,
It's got extra pieces, everything.
and I think it came with that table, and it's
Yeah.
got all the stuff that he's building, and he basically comes with like a laboratory.
It's even got the Dora watch. It's so cool.
It has the Dora
Yeah.
watch.
It's the coolest thing. I want that one, if nothing else.
This is probably the most 80s thing in the movie.
Yep.
This location is probably where every drug lord in an 80s action movie lived.
And again, it feels like a Timothy Dalton Bond action
Yep.
finale.
I was gonna say it looks as 70s as it does 80s.
Well, Timothy Dalton was the 80s, but yeah.
Oh, okay. I think one of the reasons that this movie has not yet grabbed me the way it has you guys is all of the spy aesthetic stuff and Bond stuff that you're picking up on, because that's not my bag.
That's true.
That's
It's not
fair.
your bag.
Does this count eventually in Spy Movie Rewind?
No,
Probably not.
I don't know. I mean, maybe.
I don't think it does.
Yeah, I don't think it does. It counts as a
I don't
Christmas
think it's a
service.
straight up spy movie. I think it's just it's sort of
If it was
the
espionage
Nolan movies.
rewind, surely.
They're not spy movies, but they go. Yeah, there's espionage stuff, right?
Yeah, the
That looks
line's really vague.
painful. That like drugged out chick that's just like doing stuff, that feels really R-rated. Like, I know there's nothing about it that's specifically R-rated, but that feels like something you would not see in a PG-13 movie. I don't
Some
know
of the
why.
stuff in Mandarin's lair is like that.
That feels like something you wouldn't have seen in a PG-13 movie 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
I think we've got.
I disagree. I
redo-
think
some
that
kind of
feels
stuff.
like something that would be in a PG-13 movie or a PG movie 10, 15 years ago in the 80s.
Defining those ratings gets so sticky. Like,
I see what you're saying,
the
yeah.
criterions for what's what is really inconsistent.
But this whole thing with the lair and the women and this all feels really Shane Blacky. Like, we
It
get a lot
does.
of this stuff in like Lethal Weapon.
It does, yeah. No, I love that stuff. People don't like Ben Kingsley once he's Trevor, but I think Trevor is brilliant, and I love every scene he's in.
There's a real split-second moment here that where Tony psychs himself up to basically murder a man with a gun, and then it's the two women, and the look in his eyes where he's like, I almost murdered somebody.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's great. Well, Downey's just so good in this movie. I think it is his best performance.
Yeah.
Well, I guess until I see Civil War, that might, just depending on the context.
I remember in the lead up to this film, the shirt the Mandarin was wearing, this shirt that he's wearing right here, was
Oh,
like
yeah?
a big deal. And
Was it?
then, yeah, like I remember like a thing where like, this is the shirt that the Mandarin's wearing in the movie. Because it's a real shirt. It's not like a shirt that they just had made up for the movie. And then he's just wearing it in the scene.
That's weird, because I've never seen that with Downey's shirts. Like, people talk about them, but they're never like a big deal. People just wear them.
Yeah. Well, this one is a I forget what it is. It's some kind of pun, and it's a bunch of bullets. Like, it's like pick your poison.
Gotcha.
I forget what the pun is, but it's something like that. Also, that costume in the background, I don't think is the costume he wears as the Mandarin, but it looks exactly like the Mandarin in Kaminsky's runs.
It does.
Not
You're
Kaminsky.
right.
Yeah, Kaminsky.
It does look like Kaminsky's. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love his explanation here, where he's like, they'd get me more drugs.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's so funny.
They said that they'd get you off them. No, they told me they'd give me more.
Ben Kingsley is an incredible actor, but he tends to play the same type of character in most movies. If he's not a villain, he's a wise sage type. And this is, I think, the biggest deviation in that.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, I don't think he's ever played this type of character.
I gotta say, guys, dialogue-wise, this is a really good script.
Oh yeah.
So the gave me plastic surgery, I think, is the biggest out that they give this not being the Mandarin and being able to cast Ben Kingsley again later. It's just a slight line that they just throw in there as they gave me plastic surgery.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you while you're talking about the script.
No, that's okay. I was just gonna mention because it's a random thing to say right now if I'm not gonna give an example. I like you were talking about terms and phrases earlier. I like how consistent Tony's dialogue is throughout this, and of course, it's hard to tell when he's making it up in the moment and when it's in the script. But I really like you've got 5 minutes, fill it with words.
Yes,
Yeah.
I love that one
I
too.
love that too.
And there's one that Trevor's about to say, which is his think tank thinked it up, that I really love.
Yeah, I love that too. I think part of it's also this movie, like, it's structured really well. Like,
Yeah.
the setups and payoffs and callbacks and such all work really well.
Unfortunately, he never saw that coming.
I actually use this line all the time, where he goes, I panicked, but then I handled it. I say that all the time to people. Whenever something goes wrong, and like I'm like, hey, can you help me? And then I figure it out on my own, and somebody's like, what was it? I was like, no, I panicked, but then I handled it.
There's so many fun out of context lines here.
Shane Black trope number 47, kidnapping, and specifically being restrained while kidnapped.
See, Steve is the Count from Sesame Street, and Eric likes to pretend like he's the Count from Sesame Street.
I just pick random numbers.
One of these people, he's one of these people is doing math. The other one is playing the lottery.
This is the 11th tooth.
The 11th.
This is the 11th toothed one-liner that Tony gives in this film.
So many good one-liners.
So many.
Oh, I love it.
At least 11-toothed.
One of the rare
That's
criticisms I will give this movie is I think her acting completely changes when she's revealed to be working with Killian. Like, she's not playing vulnerable anymore at all for this one scene, and it's weird.
I disagree.
And
I think
Steve and I hate that.
I think she's still playing vulnerable here.
Well, I think she plays vulnerable by the end, but like when she's smiling at the computer and then she turns around and says, "Oh, it's me," kind of thing, I think all of that's kind of weird.
It is a little weird.
Like here right now when she's looking at Tony seeing what all this has brought her, it's totally vulnerable. But before that, no.
Which is weird because it's majoritively in the same scene.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't know what's up with that. Just the introduction of it's bizarre. I liked her connection, though. I think every actor in this movie has a great chemistry with Downey, and they really play off of each other. Because a lot of these one-liners don't work if the acting and the style of the film don't support it. But they totally do.
I love this weird reoccurring theme. Like, so many villains have daddy issues. He doesn't seem to. His dad was just an idiot who gave him weird phrases that have stuck with him.
I love that.
Although the one he has earlier, failure is just the just the fog through which we glimpse triumph. I think is brilliant.
I do like that, but I do also think it's kind of cliche, and it probably did come from his dad.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of these were like either Shane. We keep saying Shane Black. There was another writer on this film. It might be him. I wouldn't be surprised if it was one of their two dads.
Steve, that's always such an impressive writing thing to me, where a line is brilliant and equally cliche because it's just the thing that has to go there.
No, that's true. I agree with you.
I love that.
Eric, I wish we got more of the daddy issue thing, because Tony's got daddy issues all over the place in the first two movies, and it's fun to parallel that.
Yeah.
I love that.
But at some point, you got to let a character start being
himself,
his own character, and not just be another parallel or mirror or something.
Well, to be fair, I guess
antagonist.
I guess Harley's got that, right? Because his dad's gone?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I love that the big revelation of Killian isn't revenge or like he's not really obsessed with Tony. He just cares about Tony because he thinks Tony's the guy that can finalize Extremis. This whole plan is not about Tony. I
Though it
love
easily could have been given his background and what we saw in that first scene.
well, but I love that his big revelation is anonymity, that no
Yeah.
one cares about him, and moving in the shadows is so much more dangerous than moving in the open. Which is what this
And then he's taking
film's
advantage of that.
We're gonna-
Where it's like if you pay attention to people and give them the time of day, you might help to not accidentally create a horrible supervillain.
yeah.
That's interesting.
We're gonna get flack for this in the comments, or I will get flack for this in the comments. But his anonymity speech is 100 times better than anything Bane says with nobody cared about me until I put on the mask.
Oh,
Well,
absolutely.
that's just because that didn't really go anywhere.
It didn't, but like this movie is that theme all over the place.
Well, that's true.
Okay,
Like his
so
whole plan about anonymity, the whole idea of hiding in the shadows and creating a vague image with the Mandarin, the whole idea of psychologically we create demons like that. It's brilliant. It is a mask metaphor.
There are a lot of parallels to make between this and that movie, and of course, they came out a year apart.
Yeah.
I think.
So yeah, because Rises came out same year as Avengers.
Yeah.
So what happens here in the deleted, I guess, alternate scenes, is he shoots her, and then she starts crawling and like injects the Extremis into a plant so that it explodes. It's the whole thing was that it was too hard for the audience to track, but she was basically doing things while they were having a conversation, and it was more of a self-sacrifice.
Oh, interesting.
Well, to
You
talk
know,
about the
I like the version of the film where it's just kind of a massive shock that this character just gets off.
No, I agree with you. The thing with the plant though, I like that the opening of the movie, the idea for Extremis is to grow plants, and the whole movie is Tony growing.
Yeah, that's a really obvious metaphor that I never picked up on.
It is really obvious. It's one of those things where so much in this movie is in your face, but no one thinks to verbalize it just because of.
And can I take that even further, Steve?
Sure.
I feel like Tony Stark is a guy who has such an extreme personality and such an obsessive personality that if he's not careful, he could grow so much he explodes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, totally.
I really don't like this little bit in this scene because I don't understand. When we cut into the armor, Rhodey's like, "Don't open, don't open, don't open." And he goes, "Okay, open." I don't know what changes. I don't know what makes it okay to open.
I think it's just the
we'll see
armor
when we come back.
overheats. I think the armor just overheats and opens up. Like that's kind of what happened with Tony at the beginning when he gets to Tennessee.
No, because he says, "Okay, let's go,"
Oh, okay.
and it opens. When we cut back, you'll see.
I figured like it was just inevitable with the way the machine's made. The other thing I want to mention, I guess when we get to that scene probably, but I love the metaphor of the knight slaying the dragon with this, with Eldritch Killian breathing fire and having dragon tattoos, and Tony having a suit of armor, but it's not a shell to protect him, it's a tool, like the knight in armor.
I really love these two. They're clearly actors. Here it is. What changes that it's okay to jump out now? I don't understand.
There's a beep.
Yeah, what does that mean?
That tells him something.
I figure the beep is just about to open, so he's just rolling with it.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I don't know. I maybe that's what it is. I love the shot. I love the way he pulls this. He's so
that's
theatrical.
He should be Mullen. He's called Sabin in this movie. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, I love all that. I love Aldrich Killian. I love his wardrobe. I always talk about this with commentaries and people's clothes, but I love his wardrobe.
I also love his clothes, but again, it's very 70s.
It is. It totally is. It's James Bond villain.
Yeah. Oh, it's absolutely James Bond villain.
I know a lot of people saying that Guy Pearce should have been Iron Man after Downey because we already used up Sam Rockwell, and now we can't do that either.
We do keep using the people that would be great to replace Downey as Iron Man villains.
Yeah, we do. It's a shame.
On the other hand, I think we're at a place now where it's pretty and maybe I'm wrong. It'll be interesting to see if I am, but it's really easy for me at this point to say I don't think we recast any of these characters.
Well, Feige has been saying for a long time that they're going to treat it like James Bond, just recast. I think replacing Downey is going to be the hardest thing they have to do.
Boy, even if you still say that, I have a hard time buying it just because time moves linearly. I mean, like moves in real time with these movies. Like, I don't see trying to keep everybody
Yeah, but
young
James
forever.
Bond movies move linearly
Yeah, that's what I was
too.
gonna say. It's like the Cold War ends with Brosnan's movies, but it's at the height with Connery's, and we all assume that's one continuity.
It's true, but it just feels like much more of the world we live in than those movies ever did to me.
I don't know. I feel like those captured that pretty well.
You're not a James Bond fan. You don't know.
I'm not pretending like I do.
You didn't
I,
live through the '60s. You don't know what we went through.
I think
I gotta tell you guys, I'm at a place right now, and we'll see if if I'm still like this when we get to the end of this movie. And of course, we're talking over it, but and like maybe I was already at this place, but like, I think this is a really good movie that I just don't care about.
That's fine. I
That's
feel
fair.
like that's how most people feel about Iron Man comics.
I
feel
don't
like
know
that's
why.
how
I don't
you
know
feel
why
about
that
Iron Man
is.
comics.
Like Steve, yeah, it is. I mean, Steve, like in the theater first time around, like I really picked up on and appreciated a lot of the political commentary that it was doing, especially with the third act, and felt weird that people weren't talking about it and were acting like it was just a boring formulaic superhero movie. This is like the least superhero of the Marvel movies, I
I
think.
agree. I think
absolutely.
it's one of the most unique stories of any superhero movie, really.
I think this is easily their most outside the box film.
I like how deliberately paced it is. I like that we are halfway through the movie at the we're already past that, but at the point where I think we're in the third act, like we ought to be, we're halfway through, and yet we're only halfway through, but there's so much like downtime, and it doesn't feel like we're just trying to represent a character stuff from comics and fill quotas. Like it feels like actual people being at places for the duration of time that they're supposed to be and doing things. And
Can I quote Shane Black about one of his advices on screenwriting? Is that one of the biggest problems in films right now is that movies are just like a sound wave where you're supposed to like a joke set up payoff. That's how he writes: is you set up, you have the downtime, and you pay it off. And now movies are just start big, stay big, end big. And I think this is a great example of a film that doesn't do that.
Yeah, and we talk about this all the time. It is a
setup and payoff film.
And we talk about this all the time, but like or dislike the movie because I like it a lot. And Cap, I know it's not your kind of thing, but like narratively, structurally, objectively, it is a good movie.
Oh yeah. And it's really well directed. Like he gets so much coverage.
Yeah.
And he gets enough reaction shots.
Which is really interesting given that's only his second film directing.
I love that thing with the soccer.
I do that too. I repeat ole 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 sometimes at people. And I'm sure that is just a soccer thing or a football thing, as Trevor would say. But I say it.
I would know because I don't watch sports. I also like the thing before when the shootout was happening. He wakes up and he just keeps drinking his beer.
Yeah.
I also like the pacing of the editing and how he's cutting.
Yeah.
Because like he does quick cut a lot, and it is an action movie, but he quick cuts like an action scene in talking scenes, but it's not like shaky cam and I can't see what I'm looking at. He's just showing us all of the natural reactions of people and stuff. And like he's not constantly doing that in every scene, but he cuts a lot.
Well, he's very. The problem I have with a lot of directors right now is like they make movies, but they shoot them like they're on TV. And Shane Black very clearly knows he's making this for a 50-foot screen.
That's exactly. Yeah, he doesn't do those giant headshots.
Yeah, exactly. We get a couple of headshots here and there. Like we have a little bit right here, but like it's not standard.
Sometimes
you're not staring up at the guy's eyes.
But even these, you can see the background,
exactly.
Steve. And like I said, he gives, compare this to like, and just this movie's on my mind because I did a rewind on it recently. Compare it to Man of Steel, where you had scenes where they actually built big sets, and you might have thought that you were looking at green screen because they hardly had any coverage.
Yeah, exactly.
I wish this didn't pan down. I wish this was speaking of shooting, I wish it didn't pan down to her leg. I wish we just saw that she didn't have a leg. I wish it didn't put as fine a point on it.
I kind of like
Well,
that.
you know what's weird about that, Eric? The first time around, I didn't even pick up on that, and you're saying they're making a big deal out of it, which is weird. Like in the theater, I didn't understand what we were looking at there.
Just as like an
I don't
experience
know
thing,
why.
though, like I think the momentum of that scene where it pans down is a good period for it. Like the whole way the scene is shot, where like he's walking and we follow and we see him go up all the way down. I think it's a good payoff just directorially.
Playing
Man, Iron Man,
the
you're gonna have a
let's
rough time here. You can save Pepper or you can save the president. You can't have both. It's like a supervillain. You can rule the world or you can blow it up.
um
You can't do both.
playing the let's pretend the Marvel universe is the real universe and the president actually has to deal with all of this. We never addressed the fact that
That's great.
the vice president was in league with terrorists.
No, he gets
Oh,
arrested at the
Never
end.
comes up again. We never have to really deal with that. Who's the new vice? Do we have a new vice president in Civil War?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Is it on?
I bet it's an Agents of Shield.
Yeah. Okay, so here's what I really like about this action scene. He has no idea how to use the armor.
Yeah. No, I love that
He's
too. It's
slowly
great.
figuring it out, and even still, he still goes for a gun.
Well, it's like the thing in Iron Man 2 where Rhodey takes a while to like keep up with Tony fighting.
Yeah,
And he's
like
still a
even though
soldier.
he's in an armor full of weapons, he doesn't really know how to use it, so he just sticks with a gun because he knows how to
Yeah.
use that.
Yeah, I think that's all great.
The guy playing the president is another character actor I like a lot. Yeah, I'll go to. Forgive me, but I got to go to Star Trek again. He played, and this is actually really interesting given the role he's playing in this because he played Luther Sloan in Deep Space Nine of Section 31, which is the scary shadow government that nobody knows about that works under Starfleet that's not regulated and has no oversight. And here he is playing a totally above board president who has a vice president that's working with the terrorists.
Well, and the vice president is obviously Miguel Ferrer, who's also a pretty big character actor. Probably most well known for RoboCop. He's actually the guy behind the RoboCop product.
Oh, really? Okay. But see,
Yeah.
I bring that up.
Yeah, he's
because
lost about all his hair since then. But
I just want to mention that I brought that up because it was such a surprising turn to me because I knew him so much from DS9 that I was waiting for the president to be in league with the bad guys up till this scene.
you know, I never noticed it, but he grabs Tony by the arm there, and he kind of reacts just like Rhodey did earlier. So maybe the Extremis does do something to their armor.
It does. I don't know. I kept assuming that's what it was, but maybe that is. Because Tony's not in the suit this time, so it's not a pain thing. It might just be the armor reacting negatively.
Yeah. Okay, so here's a thing that I have argued with people about.
The Unibeam?
This scene, very clearly, the movie indicates to us through visual language that he's dead. And I have heard people complain, like, well, how can we know he's dead? Like, we see them come back from things all the time. Like, how do we... I'm like, no, it's shot so that you know through visual language he's dead. And
The
their
dude
powers
got
are kind
blasted
of
through the
inconsistent.
chest.
The problem with movies like this is that if you wanted to be gimmicky about it, you could get away with bringing that person back, and we just are watching a movie that's not that kind of gimmicky.
Mm-hmm.
Also, how else do you make it clear enough without having a funeral?
Yeah.
And that's always the point. Unless it's a really major character, I think you can get away with that. When you have, like, when your protagonist or a major supporting character or a villain dies and it's a little bit ambiguous, you've got to put them in the ground.
So, the trailer's made a big deal out of this action scene where he's rescuing everybody, and
This is, by the way, probably my favorite scene in the whole movie.
It's remarkable. It's done so well. It's one of the most unique things any of these Marvel movies have ever done.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Steve.
No, sorry, that's all I was going to say. Like, the
opinion,
trailer's made a big deal out of this particular scene that you'd get to see pay off in the film, and it didn't disappoint.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm going to assume you all know, like, this is all real. Like, this is really people in the air. They jumped out of an airplane a bunch like old James Bond movies used to.
This is how Downey broke his ankle for Iron Man.
I feel like
isn't
you
it?
can tell. I'm sorry, what was that, Steve?
Isn't this how Downey broke his ankle for Iron Man 3?
Yes.
I thought this was it.
Well, that's what I heard anyway, yeah.
But yeah, no, you can totally tell this was shot in the air. It feels so real.
It does. I love it. It's great.
Oh, Eric, the thing where he's in the armor while they're falling, and he shoots his rocket out the back of his feet. They did that too. That was also real.
Oh, really?
No, it wasn't.
I know. Yeah. They really made a mechanical suit that can drive it itself.
Let's both fake it the whole time, like being completely sarcastic with each other.
This is such a great jump
Oh,
moment.
I love that.
I
love that.
So good. I also love Downey's reaction here, where he's in the boat.
He thinks he's dead.
It's like a video game, but it's hilarious. What was I gonna say?
Well, the thing that they do here that I actually like better than in the comics with Kaminsky and John Byrne's run, which, if you don't know, this idea of it in the comics is called telepresence armor, starts in John Byrne's run and then continues into Kaminsky's run. And they actually get shoutouts in the credits. In the comics, they do that very comic book, or even just, I'm going to say 90s-y thing of when the suit gets hurt, like he gets hurt, or like it has like mental feedback. I really like that they didn't do that.
I do too.
Because there's no reason for you to develop a remote control that feeds back into like hurting your brain.
Well, to be fair, with the
only reason
stuff,
you'd have that is if you couldn't build it any other way. Like, you wouldn't do that on purpose, obviously. There's a mental link and your brain processes it like limbs and like it processes the pain.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I mean, to be fair, because I think it's a problem in Kaminsky before it's a problem with Byrne. Because in Byrne's run, the whole thing is like his body shut down and it's fighting against him. So he's using the stronger armor to make moves that his body is rejecting.
Yeah,
so
that's
he
true.
would get
That's
hurt.
true. Yeah, I'm kind of blending those two in my brain, but yeah, you're right.
Yeah, because in Byrne's it works better. I still hate Telepencil's armor though. I think that whole idea just doesn't work for me.
Okay,
And the whole paralyzed Tony.
So this scene with Pepper is why Pepper being abducted works more than any other. Oh, the girlfriend gets kidnapped, is because that it has nothing to do with Tony.
Yeah, you've turned me around completely on this.
Obsessed with her.
When you and I reviewed it right after it came out, I said I didn't like that you had a kidnapping thing at the end of the movie because I'm used to being irritated about that. I mean, I'll admit that. Like, you see a trope you've seen 100,000 times in a superhero movie, and you go, oh, we got to go there again. But I wasn't thinking about the motivations behind it.
And it's such a unique movie, so when you see that, I can understand why initially it would feel weird, because everything else is so natural and different, especially right after that action scene from the plane. That immediately.
I also think we talked about that, and I had only seen it the one time.
Right. No, I like all that.
And this is the explanation that where everything he says doesn't mean anything. It is all it is all true, but it's all just propaganda to incite the masses. Because the explanation is that it's here at an oil and there was a huge oil spill right before this movie, like by like a year or two. And it's kind of playing off of that. And that he doesn't actually care that there was this huge oil spill, and that no one actually, I think he specifically says, no fat cat saw any jail time. And then he just, I don't actually care. I just need something that's going to work. That's going to make it sound like I have a reason for doing this.
Well, yeah,
and that makes it almost scarier than if he had a big, scary ideological reason for doing this, because it makes it clear just how easily manipulated people are.
Yeah. And how easily malleable ideals are, that you cannot subscribe to an ideal but understand why it would appeal to people and twist it.
Yeah, that makes it a weakness. Sorry, go ahead, Steve.
Yeah. No, sorry, I like that conversation. But no, and to get political without getting too political, but the whole idea that you get an election, because it is an election year while we're recording this, but to get an election and people say they will do things, and you should know by common sense that what most people say is not actually possible. So you ascribe actions and motivations and ideals onto a person that they're not capable of actually committing. And that's what we do with the Mandarin. That's what we do with the president. That's what we do with everything Aldrich Killian is promising with the Iron Patriot. Like, none of this should really be happening, but we want to believe it does. We want to act like they have full control over the world when they don't. And that's where he gets power from. Like,
it's impossible to talk about a movie like this without talking about real world politics and stuff, because that's what the thing is about, of course. But how many Steve, how many things that people really believe and think that they believe deep down that you couldn't possibly change in them are because they want to and not because of something they're actually sure of?
I think
Or
everything.
because they were
I think
raised
the
to.
whole
That's just
idea
how
of
it's always
human
been.
ideology is down to your passions.
And I think very often we look at that idea as a really endearing thing. We want to be that way. We praise people for being that way. And sometimes it's a good thing, and then sometimes somebody like this guy can prey on it. So I mean that's kind of the ideal of hope really
Yeah,
is that I believe it'll work out because it needs to work out.
yeah. And Iron Man, this isn't a superhero movie exactly because it's a different formula, but that's what superheroes are, right? Like that's what Tony is for the kid. Like
Yeah.
he is that representation. He is the opposite end of Eldritch Killian by the end of this movie.
This scene never fails to excite me.
Me too. It's my favorite action scene in every Marvel movie.
Well, and in going kind of against something I said earlier, this does feel like a big payoff scene for the Iron Man movies. Like you've been kind of waiting for this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
If you really like these and you're really into,
See,
especially if you're like me and you thought that the big climactic action scene at the end of Iron Man 2 was kind of a letdown because they'd already done their big climactic action scene and it was 30 minutes into the movie. Like,
yeah.
yeah,
No,
this
you're
is the
absolutely
biggest
right.
and the best of all of the Iron Man action scenes in the Iron Man films.
Yeah.
So can we talk about the fact that really weirdly there is one armor that looks exactly like Ronin?
The
Ronin.
God Killer armor?
Is that what it's called? There's a
Yeah,
black
the
and
with the
gold armor.
spikes.
Yeah, it looks just like there's a character from Bendis's New Avengers called Ronin. I'm sure
Yeah.
you'd know him if you saw him, Cap.
Okay.
But it looks exactly like him, and I don't know why. Like, there's no
Yeah,
other armors that look like other characters or anything like that.
well, it's weird because a lot of people are like ascribing canon onto these armors, like saying, well, this armor does this thing and this armor does this thing without any actual proof of it. They just have names. So people thought that Ronin-esque armor, what they called God Killer, was like a Thor Buster for the MCU,
Huh.
which was interesting. I like that idea.
Well, and I
I
remember
also
Igor initially everyone thought was the
It was
Hulkbuster.
Hulkbuster. Yeah. Uh, Before this, when the armors first showed up, I love Tony's line where he's like, "It's Christmas, take him to church."
Yeah, I've talked about this before. That's one
Yeah,
of my
yeah, that's
favorite.
Eric's favorite thing.
It's one of my favorite one-liners that I will never be able to use in real life. I will
And this
never be
is
doing anything cool enough to say that.
And even if you did, nobody would know where it came from.
Yeah, they wouldn't know I was referencing Iron Man 3. I
so
love
the
that the
armor
first
that
armor
Rhodey
that he
just
gets in is
flew up
the
on,
sorry,
the
the
one that
Heartbreaker armor.
Rhodey flew up on, the Heartbreaker one. That's my favorite of all of these.
When the toys were coming out, specifically the
I
Legos,
can't believe you know the names of all these armors.
I don't know
not all of
them.
them.
It's crazy. But as many as you do,
Well,
like,
this is Silver
but
Centurion. After he loses this, he's got the shotgun armor, which I like a lot.
well
it's a heartbreaker.
the Heartbreaker armor in was the only one of these I think in the Lego sets, and so people
Yeah.
thought that was going to be the final armor at the end of the movie. Like that was going to be his like new Iron Man armor. And then
Yeah.
I love that the first armor he wears is the Silver Centurion,
Me
and then it
too.
looks as good as it does.
It looks great. I love that it's got the blade that he's going to use later, and I like that it's the same thing as Dennis O'Neill's run, where like the run was about fear, the movie's about Tony's fear, so he takes the armor from the comics that symbolize Tony's overcoming fear. I also love that line.
I also really love the Ginsu line.
Yeah,
And this is so creepy.
it is. No, it's freaky, and I love the way Guy Pearce plays it. It's fantastic.
Whether you like the Mandarin twist or not, I do, and it's not a thing that really bugs me, but I do really appreciate getting to the end of this and how little of the real villain you could have possibly called.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I think at the end when he says "I am the Mandarin," I think that's totally earned because of the way the mystery builds up and what that character was.
I think it is too, and a lot of people that were really latching on to how interesting what they thought the actual Mandarin was, and then they lose that, thought that was cheap and not earned because
In
they
certain
weren't
ways, they
looking at.
crafted the exact supervillain that audiences wanted.
Yeah.
and like on a meta level, kind of did what they did in the movie.
Well, and that's
Yeah.
and then artistically, I really kind of like that.
I do too. I think that's
so-
partly why I love it as much too.
Because it's kind of it's proving their point a little bit. Like, look how easy it was for us to manipulate you into thinking that we were doing the thing that you would expect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost, you could
And
almost
like
say,
they make him really menacing, and we're scared of him, and then he's not that at all.
you could almost say that the trailers themselves are a reflection of the themes of media manipulation and how
Yeah.
easy it is to make one thing look like something else.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah,
And
and
then I
then
mean,
the big
especially with this
but-
coming out after Avengers, which is much so like that movie is a formulaic superhero movie.
Yeah, good point.
So before,
Which I think makes it much less likely to call, Steve.
Yeah. Yeah.
well,
Exactly.
and
you're
that
really
this follows
expecting what you've
Avengers
seen
is so
before.
crazy. Also, I
Yeah.
love the really generic and obvious symbolism of the president in the full
Iron Patriot
the
armor.
red, white, and blue armor in like the Christ pose.
That's
yeah.
Like I
I
think
love that,
that's
though.
like the way that they've crafted the Mandarin that's so perfect.
Yeah, I think that's great because I mean, this movie's not holding back at all. It is really even more sharp politically than even Winter Soldier.
Yeah. So just to tell you how much I like this movie and how many times I've seen this film, before I mentioned that there's a Ginsu line that's coming up, that line's not in the movie. That's just in the commentary. They talk about a line that they cut where he cuts Killian's arm off. He says
Eric.
this armor is called Ginsu. Yeah, you take a minute. That's not
That's
in the
hilarious.
movie. I just said I liked a line that's not in the movie.
Oh my goodness, that's great. I one thing I'm a little bit shocked by is how super popular and well, not popular. Well, I mean, it was and it wasn't, but like how much money this movie made, how many people went and saw it,
And how
and
nobody
it's
talks
one
about
of
it
the
now?
least talked about Marvel movies.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so many
It was
people
huge,
call it
and
one of the worst.
Yeah, there are
I just
definitely
feel
people
like
that think that this movie's a huge
on a
letdown.
story on a story level, on a movie making level, on an acting level, I can't say that. I think it's still one of the ones I'm least interested in returning to
You
for
could say it's
whatever
not
reason.
for you.
It's not for
Yeah.
me, yeah. And that's the thing is that I think it's not to put words in anybody's mouth, but I think it's not that it's a bad movie, it's that it's not what people wanted.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely what it is, and people can't deal with that. It has to
Yeah.
be bad. It can't just not be what I want. Which
Well,
is
especially
really
if we talk-
everyone's issue with the Mandarin twist. No one's
Yeah.
issue is that it's bad. It's that it's not what they wanted.
Yeah.
I mean, I really imagine that when I start writing about this, I'm going to like it a lot better just living with it.
I like that bit there where he breaks his arm. That's cool.
And there's this really confusing scene where it looks like he cut Tony's leg.
Yeah,
and
when he ejects.
Yeah, and it once I saw it,
That looks amazing.
Yeah.
When he drops and the armor catches him and it looks flawless.
And I also really just because the name of this armor is the shotgun armor, and the way he fights with it is like to fire back while he's punching, like it's a shotgun. I think that's awesome.
Eric, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Well, no, there's a shot coming up where he's going to cut off. You're going to see Tony's leg eject from the armor, and then he's going to cut off. Here it is.
Right there.
And it looks like he cut his leg off. And like in the theaters, and I've heard other people be confused, be like, "Wait, did Tony's leg just get cut off?"
Yeah.
It's a really quick shot. I love how this whole thing is choreographed.
I do too. It's one of the most satisfying like villain hero fights.
Yeah.
If you were going to actually cut his arm off, and Steve, in the theater, I did not pick up on the Dragon Slayer thing, but you're absolutely right. It's
Yeah,
like
he's got the tattoos. Because I mean, that's
And the
that was a
tattoos
reference to
are
Fang
like
Foom.
exactly Fin Fang Foom from the comics.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's fun.
I love this bit.
No, it is cool that he actually looks like a supervillain now.
Well, and here's the thing, is I totally love and accept him as the cinematic Mandarin in this film. I think he totally earns it by the end of this film. But I'm also okay if they want to do a more comic booky Mandarin as done or as they suggested with the Return of the King,
Short.
Rise of the King, whatever that. Yeah, All Hail the King.
Eric, as much as you love this, you've got to kind of want to see that, right?
I
there's
do.
got to be a part of you
I
that
really want
sorta
the
wants to see that.
10 ringed, cosmic ringman. If there was any mistake in this whole fight, I think it's that this is such a great death. Like, if this was the end of the movie, that's blowing the armor is such a great, like, metaphorically, and just it's cool.
Okay,
Well,
so
see,
explain to
I
me,
still think
how is he
thematically
able
though,
to
like
put
you
the
need
armor
Pepper
on
there.
him?
Wait, what do we have to explain?
I'm an idiot. Explain to me, how is he, if they're coded to Tony, how is he able to put the armor on Killian?
Well, Killian wouldn't be able to control the armor. That's why he couldn't move.
Well,
Well,
it's
so he can
also
still
your
put it on a
explanation from
person.
earlier where you said like that was the Mark 42, the one he probably didn't have time to code to him.
Yeah, and I guess that works there too.
Yeah, where he'd be
Yeah,
able to
well,
snap
and
it.
I saw that it was the 42. I just wasn't sure what the relevance of that was.
Well, it's the armor that he's been using the whole movie.
Yeah, it's the
No,
one
I got that.
getting
I
it in the
just didn't know
prototype.
if that was a coding thing too or not. Like, I missed it. I wasn't sure.
This
No,
is
That
a
don't make
really
sense.
weird shot that I've never understood. Like, does he think his head's gonna be in there? Like, I don't understand exactly why that is ominous.
Well, it's ominous because it's him getting over the shell that was the armor after he used it as a shell to kill somebody.
Well,
So it's
then
him
this is
looking
just
at
the
his
Terminator.
spear head on, literally. And Eric, you're right. Like that would have been a previous good death, but I like that Pepper's the one that really kills him because that's the whole reason he goes through this journey in the first place. It's like he needs
Yeah, well,
her to kill you.
and it's all about Pepper. Like, we missed it earlier, but Killian says something where he's like, she would have been perfect, and Tony says, no, you're already perfect. It's very strange. She's not in this movie a lot, but she is also essential to this film for
She
both the
is, yeah.
hero and villain,
And I
and
love
not
that he
in a
greets
trophy
her there
way
at the end
either.
with like, "I got nothing."
Well,
You could
well,
you could almost make the case that like she's his arch nemesis before Tony is, or that like both of them together are kind of his arch
I
nemesis.
think it's that
and
there's both.
Killian says to her, "You are my trophy," and Tony's kind of thing at the end of the film is that she is not a trophy; she is a person, and
Yeah,
this her beating him is kind of the ultimate personification of that.
Exactly. Yeah.
and at the very least, it's turning the trope on its head of the like you were talking about earlier, Eric, the love interest that gets kidnapped. Like you don't expect the love interest to then show up and beat up the bad guy and
Yeah,
help win the day,
Yeah.
and to be essential and be kind of the sidekick then.
Yeah. Tony and Pepper still have like
Or
one of the best romances of any comic book film pair ever.
absolutely.
well, and I'm pretty sure I mentioned this in the Iron Man 2 commentary. Uh, it is very strange that the character that's supposed to be the swinging ladies man, at least that's how he's introduced, has the most steady relationship in superhero film history.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's really
And that's all
bizarre.
her because she can deal with it.
Yeah. Well, and
Like
the
that's one
actors
of
are
the things
so
that
great
makes
together.
her. That's one of the things
Yeah.
that makes her such an endearing and likable character is that she finds reason to put up with him.
Yeah.
Speaking of lines in terms of phrases
Seems like the only person that could.
that we really like, her line of "Who's the hot mess now?" and he goes, "It's still debatable, but it's kind of tipping your way."
I
I
love
really
Yeah,
that.
like that.
that's
I
pretty
love
funny.
that. So good.
I would bank that one he made up.
At least the response. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I mean.
So I know I showed this movie to one of my classes just because we had nothing to do that day, so we were watching a movie,
Are you the
and
teacher?
everyone at
So are you the teacher that you can just show your class films?
yeah, I had a film class at one point.
Oh, I didn't know that.
But yeah, so it was years ago at this point, but like I showed this movie to my class, and then when it was over, I had to like
When I was
stop.
16, I had my own film class.
Well, I was 16 and graduated from college.
Sorry, Steve.
But like everyone was confused about this scene, and we had to like stop and have like a 20-minute discussion about Pepper and Tony's relationship and what the armor meant, and it was awesome.
Yeah, a lot of people. I One of my least favorite how it should have ended is this one.
Me too.
Um,
I hate this
because
one.
their joke is just, well, what if the Avengers need him at this second? And that's not what destroying the armors is about. It's not about stopping
Yeah.
being Iron Man or anything. It is that these are the things that he has been distracting himself with, and it's
He's prioritizing and he's proving it to her through action.
Yeah,
yeah,
like I
exactly.
spent at least 15 minutes on my Age of Ultron analysis saying why him being in armor is not a regression from this movie.
Yeah.
But to play devil's advocate, you can understand why people left the theater thinking, "Oh, he's not going to be Iron Man anymore."
Well,
Yeah,
and they
no,
and,
that's fair.
and they intentionally left it ambiguous because this was the last film in his contract.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they tried to make it like a Buffy season 5 thing, where it's
Yeah,
like this
exactly.
could be the end, and it's a good ending.
And it works way better than Buffy season 5.
Oh well, yeah, no, absolutely. I always like to use that as the example of a thing that you made just in case you were done.
Yeah.
Do you want to complain about this scene, Cap? Because I know this is a scene you had a lot of issues with when you first saw it and we talked about it.
Sure. Let me try to think and remember what my issue is.
Oh,
Oh,
your
I
issue
remember.
was okay. Because
Here, I'll guess, and you tell me if this is my issue, Eric.
I think I know what your issue is, and I have a response ready. So let's go to it.
Okay, I believe my issue was if he's able to get the shrapnel removed, like why is he able to do it now when he couldn't before?
Because that wasn't the point of him getting rid of it before. The point, because this whole movie is about I am Iron Man to the armor in Iron 1 to I am Iron Man without the armor. So in Iron Man 2, he still had the armor as a shell, still part of this character arc. In Iron Man 2, he wasn't trying to get the arc reactor out. He was just trying to keep it working. It had nothing to do with the shrapnel getting out of his system as much as he just wanted to keep doing what he was doing. So him actually actively trying to get the shrapnel out was not part of that story.
But if you could do it, why wouldn't you do it?
But he didn't want to do it because, like he said here, it's a shell. He says the armor in Iron 1. He wants to keep being Iron Man. That whole movie is him glorifying that.
Thematically, and his explaining it to us at the end of this movie. What?
On the computer, it says FiOS.
The computer is just clearly just FiOS network.
But the stuff that you're talking about, Steve, that's spelled out at the very end of the third movie needs to be talked about more throughout them.
Oh, okay. And can I also? There's another thing that people don't pick up on, and I only know it because the commentary told me so. But the necklace that he puts around her, like, because you see the shards coming out of him, and then he's putting the necklace on her. That is made of the shards. It is. That is a huge symbolic thing too.
Yeah,
that's cool. I also love this. His final speech here is like one of the best moments in a superhero film. It's fantastic.
Well, this whole voiceover is great.
Yeah.
It's a great wrap up. This is a fantastic wrap up.
Adding the first voiceover to the end of the voiceover is just beautiful lines, yeah. And then the screwdriver. The screwdriver is perfect.
Well, and Bendis thinks so too, and that screwdriver is in the first issue of his run on Iron Man.
It is. The whole reason he wrote Iron Man is because he got inspired by the end of this movie.
Yeah, he saw this movie, his run on Iron Man, according to him, is this is what he would do next after Iron Man 3.
And I mean, and I think even to me a little bit, when I first started to realize I love this movie is when I started to figure out, oh yeah, I'm eventually going to be an Iron Man fan. Because just something about this stuck with me for so long until I finally opened the comic.
And then this is my favorite credits of any Marvel movie.
Me too.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, I'm with you there. It's pretty cool. Well, I like the one at the end of Avengers a lot.
I like the one in Ultron as well. But this is my favorite one.
Oh wait, no, maybe it's Ultron I'm thinking of with the statue.
Yep, that's Ultron.
The statue is Ultron.
Yeah, that's kind of the best thing.
I really like that.
The Winter Soldier one is really good.
There are many good credits, but this one is my favorite.
But it is super cool that they made this look like a 80s
Okay, I have a question, Mr. Knower of the Future. I've seen Civil War. Is there anything in the credits like this for Captain America? Because it's also supposed to be the quote-unquote end of a trilogy where it's stuff from all three films. Because I really like that this isn't just stuff from this movie, it's all three films. It does make it feel like you've taken a journey.
No, it does not do that.
Okay.
That's a shame.
So this is still the best credits. Okay. Good to know.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think it's a shame, Steve. But yeah, I won't say anything else.
Is there anything from the Avengers in this? Or is it all the Iron Man movies?
I don't see any Avengers stuff yet.
Yeah, I never thought about that, but like just kind of watching it.
There might be tiny things that would be really hard to notice. Like,
I would
where
notice.
exactly it was.
I'm looking closely. I don't see anything.
Yeah, I don't either. I was just asking. Well, we should mention Gary Shandling. He died recently.
He did, yeah.
Oh wow.
So yeah, he's obviously Iron Man 2, and he's a throwaway joke in Winter Soldier.
Well,
he
in
just
Winter Soldier,
recently
he's
passed
the
away.
reason we have that whole Hail Hydra meme.
Yep,
Yeah,
yep.
he's not just a throwaway joke in that.
He's
I'm
a
really glad that they
throwaway
did
internet
that.
breaking meme.
I guess, but
I don't
I
know if it's
feel like
throwaway though, because I mean,
the,
who
he's
doesn't
being
know
as
the Hail Hydra joke?
no, but it's not just that. He's being as obnoxious as he is to Tony Stark in Iron Man 2 pays off so well
Yeah.
when we
Yeah.
find out he's Hydra.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna call that throwaway. Now it doesn't. It's not like it justifies Iron Man 2 as a good movie for me or anything, but I liked how that paid off.
No, it
Also,
being
I
a good
mentioned
movie
earlier,
justifies it being a good movie.
no, it doesn't. It doesn't. Eric
I
thinking
love
that
Iron
movie's
Man
a
2,
good
but it's
movie
not a
does
good
not
movie.
make it a good movie. But
No, it's not a good movie, but it's really fun. I
I
also
love that
love
they
that
wrote
Iron Man
out.
3 is spelled 3.
it's spelled
I
out. Yeah,
love
that's pretty
that.
great.
It's great.
I remember being in the theater and thinking, "Oh, cool! They finally brought in Roxxon, and now Roxxon is freaking everywhere.
Yep.
It shows up in everything,
I wish we got comic book Justin Hammer though to pay some of that
Es-
off.
Yeah.
especially the TV shows. It's everywhere." Yes, Eric.
No, I was agreeing with Steve. I said, yeah.
Oh no, I'm sorry. I thought you said Cap. Like you were going to ask me another
No,
question of
no.
Civil War. That's kind of where I thought that was going.
Yeah, is
Cap.
Ben Kingsley the Mandarin, the villain of Civil War? That was one of the
No.
questions I asked Cap when he was briefing us. I was like, is the Mandarin in it? Do they talk about the Ten Rings? They keep teasing me with that.
I played 20 questions with these guys after I came back from seeing it.
My biggest question was, is Bucky awesome? And apparently he is, so I'm happy.
Okay,
Bucky's pretty awesome.
so I
Also,
really
spoiler
like
alert, he's in that.
because I do keep bringing up that like I want the Mandarin. I love this version. If this is to be the cinematic version of the Mandarin, I really like it.
No, yeah, me
it's
too. I think if you
it's-
keep going with it, it's still brilliant.
The only problem with it, if you never did anything after it, is it's really unless there's something I'm forgetting. Isn't it really convenient that he's got his 10 rings on, and we have an organization
No,
called the 10
because
Rings
he
in
co-opts
Iron
the
Man?
ideology of the Ten Rings. It
Yeah.
would basically be like someone saying that they were speaking for the Taliban.
Does
Yeah.
it come right out and say that that's the organization that he's
Yeah,
co-opting?
when it flashes on the screen, it's that Ten Ring symbol.
Yeah, he takes it from them. We've seen that before in Iron Man 1.
Oh, okay, I forgot about that.
Yeah, I mean that was the thing with this movie being marketed is
I
that
have
so many of the
watched the
trailers
Iron
had
Man
that
movies.
flashing and people were making the connection to the first movie that we would finally
So
pay that
myself.
off.
And I like the idea of paying that off and finally going full circle with
Yeah.
another Iron Man film. But I really like this Mandarin. But they've spent now a couple of years dangling a more comic book Mandarin in front of me. And I kind of want that too. I want my cake and I want to eat it too. I want to
feel
have
like
this
if
as my Mandarin and I want a Cosmic Ringman Mandarin.
Just do the
I feel like if
fractured
you're gonna
Iron Man.
do that,
I mean the fractured
sure.
Mandarin, and you won't have to worry about like hurting this movie.
Yeah, that's great.
I just feel like if you're gonna do that short, you can't do that just to appease people who didn't like this.
It feels like
you-
it's such a backpedal. It doesn't feel like it was
It is.
intentional.
That's exactly what it is. Yeah, that whole thing is there because people were complaining.
Oh yeah, no, totally. But
then-
like, if you're gonna
and
do
if it was
that,
just
you gotta go
that-
all the way.
Yeah, and if it was just that, maybe even I would be okay with that. But then they brought the Ten Rings again in Ant-Man, and I was kind of like, oh,
Yeah.
it's a thing. They're telling me that they're gonna do it.
Well, and
and
the other thing is we haven't had a lot of those shorts, and they did the Agent Carter short, and then she got 2 seasons of a TV show so far. So like, you kind of want to see those things
and
come
they
back
started with the
sometime.
Coulson shorts, and he got his own TV show.
That's true, and then
He
he
did,
got his own TV show. Or at least, some resurrected version of that guy got his own TV show.
I understand the special effects for this cost a lot of money, but I almost think if you wanted to keep going with Iron Man, he should be a Netflix TV show and do the comic book thing.
Yeah.
That'd be so.
That would be the most expensive television series ever produced.
It would be, but
if Robert
wouldn't it
Downey
be
Jr.
great?
was starring in it.
Well, not even
Maybe
Robert
they
Downey
could
Jr.
do
If
it
he just did
animated.
straight up comic book Tony Stark as a TV show, I'd love it.
This is
Eric,
my favorite
I
part
don't-
of every Marvel credits is the digital effects crew, where the
yeah.
screen becomes white.
That's right. That's what you find out, that they went to this magical,
own a small
legendary
nation.
little town. They went to this magical, legendary little town of like 500 people, and all of them make special effects for movies.
They own a small nation of animators.
That's right.
Visual
But no,
effectia, as we call
but
it.
no, Eric, you said make it a cartoon show. I so resist having cartoon stuff and live action stuff in the same continuity unless you can be absolutely certain that the story quality is going to match, because it almost never does.
Well, yeah, I would do it as like a 6 to 12 episode like season on Netflix with a quality control, not a Disney XD. Let's just crap it out and hope the kids like it.
And make a big deal out of it's gonna
And get
be
Downey
like
to voice it.
it's gonna be
really
like
make it
the quality of Daredevil or Jessica Jones. It's just we made it CG because it would be too expensive to produce otherwise.
Yeah.
Maybe you could get away with doing a Spider-Man show the same way, because a lot of us really want a Spider-Man
Hulk,
show.
because they're kind of afraid of doing a Hulk movie, and the Hulk kind of needs a longer format to tell any story other than the Hulk on the Run story.
Although scratch that with Spider-Man, there's no good reason if you can do Daredevil, there's no good reason you couldn't do that as a TV show.
Well, Spider-Man's a little bit bigger scale. I mean, especially with his villains.
That's Although they have done some big stuff that I would not have ever expected to see in a TV show with Daredevil.
In season
but they
2
didn't do like Dr. Octopus.
I don't
just
doubt
one
that
of
they
Spider-Man's
could
big
do
villains.
Dr. Octopus, but it would definitely cost more.
Eric, the Flash did King Shark, dude.
Well, yeah, but it doesn't look great.
Yeah, but a Netflix show would have a lot more money than that show does.
Yeah.
Like I'm saying, I think we're in a place where you can get away with stuff like that. I don't know if you've been watching Supergirl, but some of the stuff they've managed on that show looks screen-worthy to me.
Martian Manhunter, especially, yeah.
Maybe right.
And
I'm
especially big special effects stuff.
The world's moving on without me, man.
You're living in the past, Eric.
I'm living in the past.
You gotta catch up. Eric, I've seen the future, sir.
Oh man, Mandarin video sequences by Logan.
Oh,
no
cool.
first name, no last name, just Logan.
I have to confess, I made those.
I knew it.
Actually, it was me with the help of Wolverine, and together we call our company Logan.
Joss Whedon.
Yeah, that's probably what it is. It's probably just a company called Logan. Special thanks to Joss Whedon.
Usually that's what that kind of thing is.
Well, Joss Whedon helped make some of this, or like helped write some of the scenes here and there.
And they built so much on Avengers that makes sense. Like,
yeah, well, Joss Whedon has written at least one scene in every Phase 2 movie, except for Ant-Man.
Okay, so was Avengers technically the last movie in one, or the second movie in two?
It's the last movie in one, yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I meant to say the first movie too, but I was distracted by Robert Downey still talking to me.
I love this
because I totally forgot this after credit scene.
I love it. It's brilliant.
But it is a victim of Marvel's inability to decide whether they're doing one post-credit scene, whether they're doing two, whether they're not doing one, whether it's important. Yeah. Also, he looks way older here than he does in Avengers 1 or 2.
There's a really fun deleted scene in Age of Ultron where Downey and Ruffalo are talking, and clearly he's got gray hair, so they put on the biggest, most obvious wig possible to keep that scene, making it look like he's young. And that's partly why they cut it, is because it looked bad.
That's clearly improv.
I forgot all about that.
I want that TV show. I want the Banner Stark talking to each other TV show.
Or Banner like various characters from these movies keep coming in and talking to him like he's a psychiatrist, and the running gag is I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not that kind. And the show is called Not That Kind of Doctor. Everybody, thanks always for listening to our commentary podcast. Hope you enjoyed it. A part of me is actually kind of glad that I didn't watch this again ahead of time, because it was a lot of fun re-experiencing it and learning so much stuff from you guys about it. So thanks a lot for that. We will see you again shortly for more commentary podcasts. We've got lots more on the horizon, and really cool to have both of you guys here. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it. This was Captain Logan and Steve Baxey.
Good night, everybody.
And Eric.
And still, Steve is introduced or exits before me.
I did it on purpose.
See, we can do setups and payoffs well too.
Yeah, look at us. You waited 2 hours and 40 minutes.
Where are you, Hollywood?
For 2 hours and 20 minutes, but we we made sure and gave you what you were waiting for. Thanks again for listening. I'm Captain Logan. See you next time.